right in there. Okay, here we're ready. All right. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call this Board of Supervisors meeting to order. The date is July 27th. The time is 9:04. I'm going to ask everyone to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm going to ask County Counsel Tom Bose to lead us in the pledge. And then please remain standing. Pastor Lance Lowell from the Neighborhood Church will be giving us an invocation.
Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for this new day. Lord, every morning is a reminder, Lord, that in you we have new beginnings. Pray you, Lord, for this council. We thank you for their service. Thank you for this county, Lord, and the blessing that it is to our family. Lord, of all the gifts that you give us, your grace and your love are the most precious. Lord, help us to grow in our grace for each other. Lord, to follow your example. Help us, Lord, to love one another, to help the helpless, Lord, to forgive. God, to work together for the common good, for the betterment of each other. Lord, I pray that we'll grow in these abilities to give grace for one another. And Lord, help us in our motivations, Lord, to be loved and for the well-being, to give love and well-being for each other. We love you, Lord. Give wisdom, Lord, to all the decisions made today. We thank you in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Lowell and Council Bose. It's always a little more exciting to do the pledge when there's kids here. We get a little more enthusiasm. So thank you all for a nice, loud Pledge of Allegiance. So they're continuing to collect speaker cards. Most people are speaking on item 7.1, but you'll see Casey in the middle, and I think she'll be collecting any cards in order. That is an item, so it won't be during public comment in which you will speak. We're going to wait for item 7.1. Okay, so we'll move on to item 3. It's a presentation, August of 2021 as Child Support Awareness Month in Stanislaus County. Department Head Baljit Athwal and Lisa Clifton will be presenting. Good morning.
Good morning. All right, I'll get started. Just waiting for the screen to come up. All right. Good morning, Chairman Chiesa, board members, CEO Hayes, County Council Bose. Let me know if you can't hear me. I tend to be soft-spoken. I have no problem with somebody saying, hey, speak louder. I'm Baljit Athwal, the Director of the Department of Child Support Services. With me today is Lisa Clifton, our Assistant Director, Fallon Rigo, our Confidential Assistant, and we have about 7 or 8 people from Child Support. If you'll just stand up for just 1 second, real quick. These individuals are representing our department today, and these are the people and the whole team without whom important child support work would not be done. So thank you. Thank you for this time today to celebrate Child Support Awareness Month, which occurs in August every year. I would like to say it's very good to be back here in person after a what I would call challenging, tumultuous year. So while the pandemic has brought about change, some things stay the same. Child Support Services is a county department of about 128 individuals who are goals-focused, innovative, dedicated, and caring, with an overarching focus on customer support, performance, and communication. We fulfill our core program duties of establishing child support orders, establishing parentage, locating absent parents, establishing medical orders, and of course enforcing those orders that we establish. During this past year, we have been busier than usual, working with customer requests for especially order modifications as a result of the personal economic changes in the families. The department also works with payers on debt relief where it's possible. So for the next few minutes, I'm going to speak to the outcomes and impacts of the child support program, many of which are illustrated on the chart that you see on the screen and can be followed along from that chart. And I also provided some hard copies if that's easier, because I know I can't see that screen from here. As you have heard me say many, many times in the past, or some of you have heard me say this many, many times in the past, children who have actively engaged parents grow up to be better off emotionally, academically, financially, and socially. Child support is an important part of the social safety net for families in our community. I'd like to emphasize that. And this is a section of the chart. So I was curious to see how child support compares to some of our other county services that are provided to children. And I want to right now thank Kathy Harwell and thank Marianne Lilly and their staff for providing me some of those stats. I didn't have access to a lot of those stats. But in comparison, what you will see is child support is right up there, right behind CalWorks. We serve more than 25,000 children in our county. So these are county-wide stats. And child support is a critical part of the efforts to fight poverty. Can't emphasize that enough. Of the families that are eligible to receive child support, 40% of custodial families have income below the federal poverty line. That number used to be lower. Our families have grown poorer. In 2015, it was 34% of those custodial families, only 30, well, I should say only. It was a lower number. They were below the federal poverty line. In addition to that, child support represents more than half, so 57% of family income for poor custodial families that receive it. So I think that's a powerful statement. So any family that receives child support and they're poor, just imagine almost more than half, almost 2/3 is child support of that income. So collections, this is what we do. This is what we do well. We do more than this, but this is one focal point. As this chart shows, the department has continuously increased the amount of child support it collects over the years. Even during a pandemic year, a year during which funding was cut by $933,728, so almost $1 million by the state, a record amount of child support collections was received. We collected $63,663,597 just for our county. How did child support employees do this? Well, we've spent the year focused internally to maintain operations and services while supporting the emergency where we could. Employees constantly analyzed and innovated processes. Excuse me. Managers and supervisors led efforts for caseworkers to dig deeper into cases that didn't pay or didn't pay enough and reached out to our customers. We realized efficiencies by expanding the use of e-filing for legal documents and adopting electronic signatures, both of which have reduced turnaround timeframes for customers and our families. And some automated actions also helped boost the amount collected. So where does this money go? 63 million were collected. 79% went directly, of that 63 million went directly to families. It's important to show the stats that we're sharing right now, because lately I've been reading in articles, that child support doesn't collect for families, it isn't going to families, it's only going to recover costs. We're collecting for families, but a portion of these funds does also go to recover costs for public assistance that is paid out. And as the chart shows, the majority went to families, 21% went back to the government. Originally, the program was created in the 1970s to actually recover for public assistance, but it has evolved into one which serves families more so today. And today, with 32% of families being single-parent families in this county, child support is more important than ever. And anyone can apply for child support services. I think that's a myth out there. People think, you have to be receiving some kind of cash aid. No, anybody can apply. So the funding piece, the department The department and the program is state and federal funded, and it does not receive any county general fund money. This past year was an exception. Well, I'll say it doesn't receive county general fund money for child support operations. The only exception was, it's not really an exception, county funds were paid for some child support related salaries and benefits, but that's because those individuals were working to support emergency operations. Many of you, if not all of you, have heard me speak about the funding woes in this program. We were flat funded from the inception of the program back in 1999/2000. And then after much work, starting in about 2017, 2018, after much work doing a lot of education up in Sacramento, thanks to the support from the board and from the CEO, funding was increased by the legislature. At that time, so we're talking 2019, starting 2019, Stanislaus County Department of Child Support Services was set to receive $3 million, a $3 million augmentation over a three-year period. So we were set to receive an additional $1 million every year. And you know, some people might think that's not a lot of money, but our budget is about $15 million, so it's a significant amount for us. And then came the pandemic. So this year, 21-22, we would have been receiving our third year $1 million installment. So the pandemic brought about a $1 million cut last year. I'm not too sure why, which is why I emphasize, you know, we are part of the social safety net. I don't know if that was recognized, or maybe that's just my opinion and I should leave it alone. Maybe that wasn't recognized in Sacramento. So we were cut $1 million. That was the $1 million that we had already received in 1920. We were told we won't receive additional funding for 2021 or moving forward. So basically, my funding, the department's funding, was reverted back to pre-2018 levels, which, like I've said, was the same amount of funding that the department was receiving in 2001. Fortunately, we will this year, and it was a very last-minute, 11th hour kind of conversation at the legislature, we'll be receiving $707,000 back this year. And it's a one-time, because of the surplus of the state that we've been told it's a one-time addition. We are staying afloat basically by monitoring vacancies very carefully and unfortunately relying on attrition. So we in the department still remain highly cost effective in order to do the best that we can. And if Supervisor DiMartini was here today, he would share that with you. He used to always speak about how cost effective we were. In those days, it was like $3.75. For every dollar we spent on the program last year, we brought back $4.12 back into the community. Due to our unwavering commitment to service, we recently aired the following commercial that appeared on a variety of TV stations and platforms within the county. It's focused on reaching parents who may benefit from our services, especially during these difficult times.
Trying to negotiate child support payments? Let Stanislaus County Department of Child Support Services help. We're a neutral party who works to achieve a resolution. We can help you establish monthly child support payments and keep track of the accounting on your case. Plus, there are no court filing fees when you establish a child support order through us. Child support matters. We can help. Open a case online or call us today.
And for those families with a case, making payments is easier than it's ever been. In collaboration with State Department of Child Support Services, we've made many options available. It's as easy as walking into your local Walmart, your local CVS, as this slide shows, your Family Dollar store, or paying on the phone. Customers, of course, can also come into the office where we have a kiosk to pay by cash or card, and we do accept payments in person. It's just difficult to get to where we are sometimes. So whether you need a review of your order, you need a child support established, whether you need to make a payment or anything else that's child support related, we're here for you. Please encourage anyone in your community to connect with us. Visit our newly launched Facebook page to learn more. I encourage everyone to learn about the Child Support Program and all the ways we can assist parents and legal guardians in providing a stable and supportive environment to their children. I'm going to leave you today with a quote from the State of California's Child Support Awareness Month proclamation, which states, "The state is committed to offering services that are more flexible and responsive to the needs of California's diverse families than ever before. California Child Support Services, and of course your local agencies, we're here to help you better understand your rights and responsibilities, assist you with the complexities of the system, and foster your best connection to your kids. I thank all of the parents and child support professionals who are working together to ensure a bright future for California's children." And with that, board members, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions or comments?
Elsie, thank you again. We always love this report. When you come in and you're right, I'm sure Jim is, I don't know if he's watching today, but he will, I'm sure at some point text me or text you about the results here. The other thing that I know that I bring this up each year when we have this report, and I know you guys do a ton of this, is it's not just about the dollars that we're getting back to these families from the dads or the moms, but a lot of times it's about getting these parents, these dads, probably mostly in particular, back in touch with their kids, which means more than any dollars ever will mean. I mean, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, as you know, in the past, unfortunately, we haven't been able to do much during this pandemic year. We have, we feel that it's very, very important that that emotional connection is made by the parents, whether it's absent mom or absent dad. And what we've done in the past is we have collaborated with other partner agencies. A few years ago, we had a grant, and the biggest thing we do, even now, right, we've got this early intervention program going on, which is reach out to dad, let's have them connected, let's talk about this. I talked about modifications in child support. That's where some of the focus has been. That doesn't necessarily bring in more money into the program, but it certainly is trying to engage that parent and getting them involved. In fact, studies have shown even if they just engage, they will contribute. But I always say the emotional connection is far more important than any monetary connection. So yeah, thank you.
Other questions?
I just have one. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Baljeet, team, thank you very much what you do on behalf of all the children out there that have been left or vacated by their parents, one or the other. 63 million. That is awesome. Thank you very much for what you do.
Thank you, Supervisor Condit.
Okay, I guess Vito's coming down.
Okay, proclamation. Oh.
Thank you. We do have a resolution here. Thank you, Baljeet. And Lisa's going to be accepting. And as soon as Lisa's done, we're going to call up the whole team, but Fallon, Baljeet, Lisa, appreciate. So the amazing part about this department, you saw that it was flat funded. And every year there's more and more money collected. And you would think that they were on on some sort of piece rate on collections, but that's not the case. It is such a committed group of people, if you've been around the county. And remember, this money goes to the most vulnerable people, the children in our community. And poverty has been an issue for us for a long time. So this is extremely important. If you don't know the county, we're not just the jails and the libraries, but we're the payer of last resort. We really are. When you look at the social programs, and this is an important social program. So we do have, on behalf of the board, I guess I should read some of this. I'm not much of a reader, so I don't have my glasses, but whereas the Child Support Awareness Month celebrates the important emotional and financial parental support that creates a brighter future for our children, helping them to become healthy, productive, and well-adjusted adults, and whereas, lots of great things we just heard from our director. Therefore, be it resolved that the Stanislaus County Board of Supervisors does hereby unanimously proclaim August 2021 as Child Support Awareness Month in Stanislaus County and commends this observance with all our residents. Thank you very much on behalf of the board. We so much appreciate all that you do for the children and families of our community.
I just want to say thank Thank you, Chairman, and to the board for supporting Child Support Awareness Month. Thank you.
Come to the other side, too. We have to squish in. Squish in.
Looks pretty good.
Okay, now we're going to move on to item 4, which is the public comment period. It is an opportunity for anyone in the audience to speak on any item that is not on today's post agenda. Again, 7.1 is, I have a bunch of speaker cards. I do have one card for public comment. You don't have to fill out a speaker card, just so you know, to come up and speak, but it just makes it more efficient for us. So the one speaker card I do have, and please keep your comments to 5 minutes, is Stephen Bratsett. Good morning.
To the Stanislaus County Board of Supervisors dated today, we have no quality of life where we reside in Salida. Living here at this location has become unbearable. Ever since you yanked the sheriff's substation from Broadway, Finney and Covert have become horrific to live on or near. The magnitude of the mayhem on these two streets has increased exponentially year after year, and the unnecessary and excessive noise that comes from it every day and night has severely detrimented my and our ability to live with any peace or enjoyment, and has continued for years now to detriment our daily well-being and sleep. A large percentage of every day here is spent enduring illegal sources of excessive and vibrational noise. We are terrorized every day and night by local truckers, Stanislaus County Public Works, another long list of trucking companies, etc., non-local truckers, motor vehicles, including school buses and Modesto Air Express, Harley, you-know-whats, and other motorcycles ripping down the streets at double and triple the speed limit, which is not only a massive noise nuisance, but a huge public safety issue. Speeding, a speed study was completed over 3 years ago. That speed study confirmed the excessive and also dangerous speeding on these two streets, and it was sent to Modesto CHP, and to this day they have done nothing and refuse to do nothing, as also does the sheriff. I'm not going to read every single word of this mile-long pleading here, or whatever it is you want to call it. I'm going to call out the basics, and then I'm going to hand this over and expect a response within 30 days. E-motor vehicles with illegal exhaust systems, I mean, you name it. Motor vehicles burning rubber, squealing their tires, spinning donuts at the intersection next to us, excessive dog barking that animal control refuses to act upon following the filing of a complaint document, illegal fireworks and M80s, parties so loud you can hear them from 10 blocks away with no permit, even though the sheriff eventually responds, the same addresses keep doing it over and over and over again. I've been here 6 years. She's been here since 1998. We've been to numerous MAC meetings, and we've spent countless hours of our lives complaining to law enforcement, only to be ignored. Again, I'll expect a response within 30 days of today, and you'll also get a packet of information included with this, including a lot of pictures of a lot of what goes on. Rearrange this and hand it over. I'm not going to bore everybody else with every single little word, but I do want to get it on transcript. Somebody have a binder clip?
I, 1 second. 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 1 second Thank you very much. Anyone else for public comment? We did receive 2 emails for public comment, one from Yvette Wongluck regarding critical race theory, and one from Marianne Spikes regarding housing and housing costs. Anyone else? Last chance? Nope.
Good morning. I just have a comment for Buck. My really good friend Winnie Mullins asked me to come here today and to ask for our local supervisor to recognize the fact that we have a horrible, horrible mosquito problem out in Valley Home. As you know, our students are going to be coming back to school here pretty soon, and we're going to spend the majority of our time outside. So please help us with the mosquito issue. Thank you.
Yeah.
Holly Benkula.
Thanks, Holly.
Thanks, Holly. I spoke with Winnie yesterday about the issue. Thank you.
And which mosquito abatement district is that? Is it the east side?
East side.
East side, okay. Very good. And thank you for your comment. Oh, it's a no. Good morning.
I would like to comment as well on Salida, Finney and Covert. I live on Finney as well. It is unlivable, honestly. I've lived there for 20 years. It's now every other car. It's the stereo so loud my walls are shaking. I'm trying since over a year now to find a new home away from Salida. It is so sad to see this nice little town became crime galore. And often I had to call the sheriff because of people are fighting and doing things on the street or on, in front of the laundromat. It takes 45 minutes that the sheriff responds. I know it's not that big of a deal, but it is a big of a deal if it goes on every single day. And I'm so sick and tired of it. I cared for this town a lot, but I'm coming to the point where I give up. And I'm pleading to you as you are the county, take care of us, but you're not. And I'm so sad that anybody else in here who lives on these 2 streets is not speaking up. I guess they are afraid because people are slashing tires and doing all kinds of things to shut us up. And that is not even okay. That is mayhem. I've just was in the Bay Area for a few weeks. I was in San Jose, mind you. 1 car drove by with too loud of a music. 1 in San Jose. And I just can't believe that we cannot get this under control in a little Salida town which has like, what, 15,000 people? And no one wants to actually, go on the street and saying, this is not okay. We have, and you know that, we have now people were just so bored the past 12 years, had to do something with their cars illegally. They are so loud that I can't hear my own TV in my own home. And it's just maybe 10 seconds going by, but sometimes they actually also stop at the stop sign and rev their motor to make it even worse. And we're just sitting there and this is going on day and night. It's not just 1 minute here, 1 minute there. It's like every 5 minutes we have this going on, 24/7. That is not okay, and I really, really ask you to go out there and spend some time on these roads and see what we have to go through and what we have to live in. And please do something about this now, not in 10 months, not in 5 weeks. We need this now happened and now to take care of. Thank you so much.
Oh, she didn't say anything. Petra, what was the last name? Nebel. N-E-B-E-L. Nebel. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board. I'm Sheriff Dirksey, for those of you who don't know. So I do want to address Salida. We've had a couple of complaints about that this morning. So let's talk about Salida briefly. You know, historically, the Sheriff's Department used to be at a much higher staffing level than we are even now, even though our staffing is far better than it was 2.5, 3 years ago. But we are still down about 20 deputies. And with that, though, since our staffing has returned, Supervisor Withrow and I, we are very aware that Salida is, quite frankly, the most underserved community within Stanislaus County on a population basis. So with that, there is a proposal that you will see here, I think, in September, maybe late August, if I'm not mistaken, to add additional staffing specifically for Salida. Sergeant and 5 deputies that will, quite frankly, double the staffing that is in that area right now, and specifically be assigned to the town of Salida. And so I know wherever she went, oh, there she is. I know that you've kind of requested help now, and you have far better staffing in Salida now than there was 2.5 years ago. There's a deputy there 24/7. But we are going to double that. But staffing takes time, and as the board knows, every time we order a deputy, as far as to build one, kind of like that Tesla or whatever, it takes about a year to actually create that deputy behind that position. We are optimistic that by April, we will be able to staff the substation and get those folks assigned up there. But in the meantime, we will look at some other options as well, and I'll coordinate with CHP, since they do the vast majority of the traffic enforcement in the unincorporated areas. Their office is in Salida, and Captain Shane Ferrer has been a great partner, so I will work with him specifically on that. Any questions regarding Salida? Any comments?
Perfect.
That's great, thanks.
Thank you for coming up and explaining. And I think it's always good for the public to realize, when we went through the Great Recession, we had 214 allocated positions for deputies, and we're down to 144 at one point allocated positions. Those weren't filled because there's always a modicum, and right now we're at 190, going to hopefully, it depends on what the board's decision on it, I guess we shouldn't talk about, but to staff another, it takes about 5 to 6 deputies to serve one car 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. So, you know, we have to find qualified applicants, but better times. There were some really rough times, and everyone understands there were rough times. If you lived in the unincorporated area, you knew response times went up. So appreciate your comments from Salida, and I think there's some good news on the horizon. Okay, anyone else for public comment? All right.
My name is Deanna Keir, and I do live in an unincorporated area of Salida at Siska and Kiernan, and Siska's become an absolute nightmare. We live right on the corner. We can't cut our trees down on the corner, which are dying because we've had them hit from people coming around the corner so fast. It's the only thing protecting our home. And we have asked CHP repeatedly and made super excessive efforts to consistently make complaints about the speed. My own children have been hit where somebody at our school actually was walking behind them. An adult was walking up to bring something and actually grabbed my children. And I fielded phone calls for the next 3 hours from our parents saying somebody grabbed your kids. So it was a parent that protected my kids. The very first time my kids ever walked, because it's a straight shot to our school, down Sisk, and the very first time my kids ever walked to school, my son, just out of habit, being a 10-year-old at the time, grabbed hold of the top of his sister's backpack, there's a handle at the top, and ended up having to pull her out of the path of the car. One of our GVA parents almost hit our kids, pulled over, crying, calling me, upset enough that he didn't go to work because somebody else had already cut in front of them, turning, and he came and he didn't see them behind that SUV. but we're dealing with 60, 70 mile an hours between Perone and Kiernan especially. People come around that Perone corner, they don't care. We're getting ready to go back to school. Our kids aren't safe walking, and there's not just one or two that walk. There are a lot. In fact, we have parents that will stop and pick up other GVA kids that they have no idea who they are. They just recognize the uniforms and say, get in, I'm not letting you cross that street. It's unacceptable. I know that it's hard, I realize that, but my corner would be an awesome place for CHP or Sheriff's Department to set up and start clocking them and see what things that we deal with. Because the morning traffic and the evening traffic, when people are coming home, is absolutely horrendous. It's not safe for our kids to be outside in any way, shape, or form at this point. I'm even scared for them to be out in our backyard in our pool without one of us, like seriously right there instead of just watching on the cameras, because of that cinder block wall. If it gets hit, it's going straight into our pool right on top of our children. That's how fast the speeds are. It's scary. And there is no other way except for CHP. So I really do hope that CHP and Sheriff's Department can figure out some things for the unincorporated areas. It'd be nice for our kids before they go back to school. Obviously, if it's September, that's not going to happen. But it definitely is a serious, serious problem to where we have to quit work to be able to take our kids to school. It's not safe for them to walk, even though it's 3 blocks. It's not acceptable. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? All right. Oh. Okay, if you're going to speak, I'm going to be shorter next time.
Good morning. My name is Jordan Croft, and I'm here on behalf of my 2 children. I don't know what you guys can do about the face coverings, and I don't even know if your hands are tied or what.
So, ma'am, that's going to be on item 7.1. You got to speak on item 7.1. That's an actual conversation. We're going to give an update, not during public comment.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
Now I do.
I know I said that at the very beginning of the meeting, but I'm going to repeat it right now. If you have anything to do with face coverings or the COVID or California Department of Public Health, any of their guidelines, we're going to give an update on COVID on 7.1, which is a couple of items in. So anyone else for public comment, not related? All right, I'm going to close the public comment period. We're going to go on to the consent calendar. Would any board member like to pull any items on the consent calendar? Would any member of the public like to comment on any of the consent calendar items? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board for action.
Motion to approve all consent calendar items.
Okay.
Second that motion.
The motion is second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Going to move on to a public hearing. It's item 6.1, public hearing to consider the approval of the fiscal year 2021-22 assessments for County Services Area Number 4 and 27 through 27, Landscape Assessment Districts, Del Rio Heights, and Landscape and Lighting Districts, Bret Harte, Bystrom, Howard, McCracken, Laurel, Paradise, South, Riverview, and Riverdale. Public Works will be presenting. Good morning. Oh, hold on one second. We're going to turn on your mic. Let's see. You want to tap it just to make sure? Perfect.
Sorry. Good morning, Chair Chiesa, members of the board, CEO Hayes, and Mr. Bose. My name is Tracy Madison. I'm with the Public Works Department as the business manager. Today I have with me Deputy Director Frederick Clark and Veronica Aon. The agenda item is requested to conduct a public hearing to consider approval of the fiscal year 2021-2022 assessments for the following special districts: County Service Areas Number 4 through 27, the Del Rio Heights Landscaping Assessment District, and the following landscaping and lighting districts: Bret Harte, Bystrom, Howard McCracken, Laurel, Paradise South, Riverdale, and Riverview. Assessment methodology. CSAs 16 through 27 have an approved methodology in place to annually adjust the assessment rate based on projected cost of services. The methodology was not implemented for CSAs 4 through 12 were established. Therefore, the assessment for those districts may not be increased without a Prop 218 vote by the property owners. In summary, compared to fiscal year 2021, there is a change in the proposed assessments for CSA 18 Zone 2. The assessment will slightly increase the fiscal year 2021 from the initial estimated amount of $1,387.94 per EBU to $1,482.24, which is an increase of $94.30 in the assessment. It is necessary to increase the cost of maintenance of storm drainage system and the park's landscaping. Operating budgets for the majority of the CSAs and LLDs were slightly increased using a 3% inflation rate, with the exception of higher increases in CSA 18 and 24. These annual budgets reflect increased cost of labor, materials, and utilities used by the Department of Public Works and Parks and Recreation to properly maintain the stormwater and drainage systems and parks. Operating budgets for CSA 4 increased from $11,851 to $247,940, and CSA 10 decreased from $516,212 to $414,715. The annual budget for both those CSAs reflect a change in the cost due to an approval of the Stanislaus Local Agency Formation Commission, LAFCO, to reorganize the storm drainage services provided in the districts and detach Landmark Business Park Sub-Area 7 from CSA 10, the 22 parcels annexed into CSA 4, as well as the divestiture of storm drainage service from CSA 10. Starting in fiscal year 2021-2022, the CSA 4's responsibilities will be for storm drainage services for the community of Salida, while CSA 10's responsibilities will then be limited to parks and streetscape services for those areas receiving benefit. The assessment rate for the additional parcels will begin in fiscal year 2021-22. In the past years, CSA 18, 19, 20, and 26 had annexations of development properties, which resulted in the forming of new zones for these districts. The operating budgets of the new zones did not affect the budgets and assessment rates of the existing zones. The assessments of the properties in the new zones located in 18 and 26 were anticipated to begin in fiscal year 2020 to 2021. But due to delays in property development, the special services were not provided in those zones for the 2020-2021 fiscal year. The properties in the new zones will begin charging the assessment in fiscal year 2021 to 2022. Operating budgets for CSA 8, 11, and 20 will remain consistent with the prior years to keep declining fund balances under control. All proposed assessments are in compliance with Proposition 218. There are 5 staff recommendations for your approval at the conclusion of the public hearing. Find the notice of public hearing was published in compliance with Section 6066 of the Government Code. Conduct a public hearing to receive comments regarding fiscal year 2021-2022 annual assessments. Set the fiscal year 2021-2022 annual assessments as shown in Exhibit A for various county service areas, landscape assessment district, and landscape and lighting districts. Make the engineer's reports as a part of the record of this proceeding, and authorize the auditor controller to add the annual assessments to the 2021-2022 tax roll. At this time, staff requests that anyone wishing to comment during the public hearing, please identify the name and number of the special districts they are commenting upon. And if there's any questions from the board, we can answer them now. If not, I request that the opening of the public hearing.
Yeah, okay, before I open, I just have a quick question. Some of them have a 3% inflationary rate. Do you have to take the whole 3%? Do we take the whole 3% every year, or is it adjustable based on actual inflation? If you're confused. It's adjustable, okay, that's good. And then on the reserve, the capital reserves, I understand because that's replacement, but the beginning fund balance, do we try and keep that as a percentage? Because they're obviously all different, you know, per their budget. So you don't want $1 million when you have a $100,000 budget in fund balance. But I see some of them are negative, which is really bad. That would be the wrong side. But Keys, and I'm just using one example, their budget is about $209,000 a year, and they've got $404,000 in fund balance. So do we determine when is twice as much too much, or is there a percentage, or is it all the CSDs different?
They would all be different, and it also depends, I'm going to go with what they plan for capital replacement in those particular CSAs.
If you have something to add, you can come up to that microphone right there. If
She answered the
she did, okay.
Based on the capital replacement.
Okay, on the capital replacement. Because that's the capital reserves, though, correct? Versus the fund balance, which is, it's essentially
For
your savings
operations,
account.
yes.
Yeah, okay. All right. Other questions, staff?
No question, just real quick. Thank you guys for putting this together and doing this presentation. Just for the sake of people who aren't familiar with CSA 4 and CSA 10 and what we went through there, when you look at those numbers, you see big changes and with regard to their budgets. But I just want to reassure everybody that we spent months on this, probably years on this, trying to work through this thing, and had several meetings with Salida's Municipal Advisory Committee, and went through this and had the full approval of them, full support of them when we actually did this, to just try to make it a more equitable situation, kind of spread the love amongst everybody in Salida versus a few people carrying the burden of this, the sewer, the drainage district. So, yeah. So anyway, I just want to thank you guys for this, and just wanted to point that out for anybody who hadn't followed that for the last 18 months as we went through that. So, thank you.
Okay. So now I'm going to open the public hearing. If you do come forward, please state your name for the record and which community service area you are in. Anyone looking to comment? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and bring it back to the board for action.
I will make a motion to approve all staff recommendations.
Second.
We have a second. Supervisor Condit. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion again carries unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Tracy, Frederick. Okay, we're going to move on to item 7.1, which is a discussion item. It's the acceptance of an update on the COVID-19 emergency response, including the California Department of Public Health guidance for schools, the 2021-22 school year, and related actions. And I'll turn it over to the CEO and Dr. V, Dr. Wei Champagne, is, but affectionately known as Dr. V, and our Health Services Agency Director, Mary Ann Lilly.
Good morning, Chairman, KSM members of the board, and all members of the public who were interested in joining us this morning. We appreciate your participation. I wanted to introduce Dr. Julie Wei Champagne, our county's public health officer, as well as Mary Ann Lilly Tengowski, our Health Services Agency Director, who will be joining our presentation today. Most of the information will be provided by our public health team here. And then I'll touch base on some of the specific issues that we have identified related to school guidance here in the state of California. I first just wanted to acknowledge that we normally bring these COVID-19 updates under as a presentation at the beginning of the board meeting. Presentations do not include any formal actions of the Board of Supervisors. However, in this case, we have put this on for discussion with specific recommendations that allow the board the opportunity, more flexibility to direct staff as you deem appropriate when this conversation is done at the end here. So just that quick acknowledgement, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our team to get started. Thank you.
Thanks, Jody. Good morning. I'm just going to make some brief remarks before turning it over to Dr. Wei Champagne. It has been about 6 weeks. June 15 was the last time, I believe, that we were here to give you an update. And things have changed. You're hearing that in the news as well, so we wanted to bring you current on what's happening. But what I also just wanted you and the public to know that that the mitigation efforts, the activities of the Health Services Agency had not stopped. We scaled based on the transmission level, but we've continued to do the case investigation and contact tracing and the public messaging. The vaccine clinics continue, as well as our partners at Community Services Agency continuing to provide care and shelter to those that may need some help in order to adhere to the isolation or quarantine, trying as best we can to impact as few individuals in our community as possible. So that work continues. And that, I'm going to go ahead and just turn the presentation to Dr. Weishampaya.
All right, thank you. Good morning. I'm going to start with a review of the current situation. So here is the epi curve we present each time we're here, not each week anymore. So as you can see, the blue bars are the confirmed PCR tests. The green stacked bar on top of the blue is the probable tests, which are primarily antigen tests. And you can see our last summer's surge in cases, then the winter surge, and now you can see us beginning to go up again just in the last week to week and a half with an increase in our cases reported. So if we were still looking at our case rate, the 7-day average or 7-day lag that we used to pretty much live and die by with our tier assessment every Tuesday, here is what it would look like. So you can see the increase that started about perhaps 2 weeks ago in increasing. The same with our percent positive tests. Our tests were about, just over 2% of all of our tests were positive, and now we're over 6%, as you can see on this graph. So if we still had the tier system, we would be back in purple. We went through red pretty quickly in less than a week, so our unadjusted case rate is now over 10. Our percent positive 5.7, and Healthy Places Index 5.8 as of yesterday. These do change a bit. So red for our percent positives, purple for our unadjusted case rate. Since the state, our test volume is 210.7 per 100,000 per day, and we do not have a state median by which to compare and do any case rate adjustments. So we have to just look at unadjusted case rates. If you look at the CDC website and look under Stanislaus County, their red there is their highest level, and we are now listed as red. So we have entered a time again of high transmission in Stanislaus County. If we look at our total hospitalizations and ICU bed, the orange being hospital total, the red being our ICU, we can see we've had an increase just over the last week. So we were, as you can see, for total hospitalizations, in the 30s, low 40s, upper 20s for weeks and weeks. And then on Friday the 16th, we had 38 people in the hospital and 10 in the ICU. It went up startlingly last week. By last Friday, we had 77 total in the hospital, so it basically doubled with 22 in the ICU. So we're continuing to follow this. I think I had explained once before, because our cases were low, we stopped doing bed pulls on the weekends because it's a burden for our hospitals. And so you see the gaps of the Saturday and Sundays in our bed pulls in our data that we have there. But we'll continue to follow this Monday through Friday. So this is State of California has put this out for us. One of the things you can see, so these are statewide data, is the graph on the left is cases, in the middle is hospitalizations, and on the right is deaths. And the solid line is people who are unvaccinated, and the dotted line is people who are vaccinated, fully vaccinated. So you can see that the increases are primarily the increases in cases and in hospitalizations and in deaths statewide are not wholly, but very, very heavily happening in people who are not fully vaccinated. So again, this points to the fact that vaccines are very good, not 100% perfect. There are people who are getting infected and being hospitalized and even dying still that are fully vaccinated, but at a much, much, much lower rate than people who are not fully vaccinated. So as we look at this by region, and one of the reasons I put this on here is we can see yellow, San Joaquin is always yellow, so you can see the rates in unvaccinated and in fully vaccinated. And one of the things to point out here is that we are lagging behind pretty much the rest of the state in our surge, which is nice news for us. But you can see that the Bay Area, Greater Sacramento, and Southern California all have case rates quite a bit higher than the San Joaquin Valley. And the Rancho is the Northern California group, so they're the red. So as we want to look at our variants, so here we have a graph for the state of California, again, looking at the variants and what we've seen circulating in California. So prior to, say, October of last year, it was just the basic strain, non-variant, the original strain, we can call it. Then Epsilon came, and that really kind of marked our winter surge. So you can see Epsilon is what we called the West Coast variant prior to these being named with Greek letters. Then the blue Alpha came on this spring, and now you can see the black, that's the Delta, and increasing and being over 80%. I believe the number was 83% of all isolates that are undergo whole genome sequencing to identify exactly what they are. So if we try to overlay, which I tried to do, our curves of our peaks, you can see that the original last summer surge was in the original strain, as we call it. And then really it was Epsilon that drove our winter surge. Alpha, we didn't have a surge with Alpha, but you can see it really flattened our curve. We were coming down really fast and all of a sudden really flattened out, and the slope of the decrease significantly was not decreasing anymore. And you can see then with the Delta, and now we're starting to see a rise mirroring the rise of Delta, just later than the rest of the state. Again, looking at it by region, with yellow being the San Joaquin, you can see we're lagging a little behind other areas of the state, except for the rural north. And we're over 60% of all isolates from the San Joaquin Valley being Delta at this point. So a little bit about the Delta variant. It's now the dominant strain in California, as we had said, with 83% of the isolates being Delta. The problem with Delta is that it spreads way faster than the ones before. So it's going to spread twice as fast as what we had with our last surge, our winter surge. Vaccines are still very effective. 2 doses of Pfizer, excuse me, 88% effective. That's down a little bit from the 94 we had previously, but still good protection from Pfizer. It is Pfizer 96% protective against hospitalizations, which is great. So even if you're fully vaccinated, even if you become ill, you're much, much, much less likely to be hospitalized. However, 1 dose of Pfizer is not as protective as it had been previously, so it's only 33% is the estimate right now. And so that's really been informing our messaging for the last month, saying, if you only have 1 dose, you need to complete your series to be fully protected, because 1 dose isn't doing the greatest job anymore. Preliminary with laboratory and not real-world data, Moderna and Johnson & Johnson also appear to be protected, but we're awaiting more data to say that for sure. So on to vaccination for our county. So here is our vaccination rates, a proportion of people vaccinated by age. And so as we can see, if we look to the second to right graph, we have about 45% of all people in Stanislaus County age 12 and up who are fully protected against this variant. 21% of our children aged 21 to 17 who are eligible. And so you can see the difference by age group as you look through that graph. We have some difference by cities as well, so we look at our proportion of vaccinated by cities, and you can see that here, ranging from 55% fully protected in Patterson to 35.4% in Waterford. So we continue to follow that and message and give these data to the cities for their own messaging. So as we look at summarize what we're really seeing right now, I keep saying this, the pandemic isn't over. I know we're all really, really sad about that, but sadly we're still in this pandemic. As we look at our Swiss cheese model, which I've used very much to talk about how we protect ourselves, we have many layers to prove success. Any one layer by itself isn't good. We like layers. So, you get in your car, you obey the speed limit, you wear a seatbelt, you have airbags. You're not just depending on one thing to protect you. You depend on many layers to add to your protection. So these are the layers that we look at for any viral respiratory disease, quite frankly. So, the messaging that I put out last Monday, when should a fully vaccinated person wear a mask? So if you really want to protect yourself and add more layers, you ask yourself these questions. Will I be indoors or outdoors? You know, what's the ventilation like? For how long will I be there? Is everyone in the room vaccinated or not? What's the case rate and vaccination rate in that area where I am? So am I or someone in my household at risk for severe disease? So, you know, take myself for example. So as I was coming to this meeting, you know, it's indoors. I assume I'm going to be here for a few hours. You know, I'm fully vaccinated, but I can't guarantee that everyone in this room is fully vaccinated. I don't know the vaccination status. I know what the case rate and the vaccination rate is for this area. You know, and then looking at myself and my household, I'm not at high risk, I'm not at low risk, you know. I'm older, and so I elected to wear a mask today to protect myself and add another layer of protection. So I just urge people to really think that way as you're looking at where you're going, to add your layers as you feel it's necessary. Just a reminder that here is how you sign up for a vaccine. My Turn is still available, and you can schedule yourself at many different places. All of our pharmacies, Rite Aid, CVS, Walgreens, they all have vaccine available. And then testing is still available, all the sites where it's been for months now, and it's free of charge. And you can go online and sign up and go get tested if you have some symptoms or if you just want to be tested to be sure you're okay. So now we're going to move on to the California Department of Public Health School Guidance. So I wanted to talk about children's risk for severe disease before we start that. So this varies by age, as I think everyone knows. Those under 10 have about half the risk of those over 10. That's the way the study was done. As we look at Stanislaus County, we have had 7,083 cases in children aged 0 through 17. National quoted data is about 1% to 2% of people, children who are diagnosed will be hospitalized. We have had 63 children hospitalized who live in this county. MISC, which is the toxic shock syndrome that affects children and some young adults, is estimated to be about 1 in every 3,200 cases that are diagnosed, and we have had 9 in this county, all of which, of course, were hospitalized. And deaths is quoted to be about 1 in 10,000, so we've had 1 death in a child in this county. So the objective for this guidance is in-person learning for all. So the goals that they have is get all kids, K through 12, in school learning and keep kids in school learning. These have been our goals since this pandemic started. The layers of protection in the school, it's indoors. So as we look at our Swiss cheese model, they recommended distancing, ventilation, testing, and vaccination, right? You couldn't require distancing because then it'd violate the all kids in school. Ventilation, again, we have old buildings. Not everyone can meet ventilation standards. What is required in our schools is masking, isolation and quarantine, staying home if sick, those other layers that really the isolation, quarantine, and staying home if sick is quite common in disease control, but the masking is something that's been added here. I think the clicker died. So to keep kids learning in person, also there's a modified quarantine. So vaccinated don't have to quarantine, no matter if you're in school or out of school. Unvaccinated, if both are masked, exposed, can stay in the classroom with a testing strategy, so keeping them in school learning. Unvaccinated, and either the person who exposed or the person who is exposed is unmasked, then the quarantine is at home and they are not in the classroom learning. So I will turn it over to Mr. Hayes.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. V. So I have just a few comments that I want to make just regarding some of the additional work we've done since our last board meeting on this topic. And I just want to report out on a few things that I think most of the people in this audience are very familiar with already, but I do think it's important that we have this information out and commonly understood by everyone considering this matter. The first is I just want to clarify what the current status of the state rules are. And to quote, and I checked again this morning just to make sure that nothing has changed on the state's requirements. Their quote is, all students in K through 12 settings must wear masks indoors. This is a requirement from the California Department of Health, from the authority of the state of California through the governor's office. That authority has been tested numerous times throughout this pandemic, and I'll let those court cases speak for themselves. I do want to clarify that there was a lot of confusion that when this rule was first released on July 12th, and I would encourage you, you can just do a quick Google search and you'll find the specific language. Shortly after this language being released, there were headlines about the state reversing this guidance in some way. And the state did make a change shortly after releasing this requirement, but they did not change the requirement. What they changed was they gave local schools more flexibility in how to enforce the requirement. But I think it's very important that I've read many headlines right after this guidance was released that I felt was misleading and that it insinuated that somehow local schools had more control over whether or not they should or should not implement these requirements. To be clear, schools have no choice but to comply with this legal mandate, or they will forego most or all of the funding that they have to keep their schools open. That is the choice presented to schools. The Board of Supervisors, nor schools, has the authority to change this requirement from the California Department of Public Health. This authority rests exclusively with the state of California through the California Department of Public Health and the Governor of California. We acknowledge that the state is currently being sued over these issues. So there is litigation that is currently taking place, and we'll be curious to see where that goes. So as you can see, there are many strong and varying opinions, we're already seeing that, that recognize, and we recognize there are a lot of voices out here on this particular issue. I want to also acknowledge that many of us, whether up on this dais or county staff out here and staff in our public health department, have school-age children as well, and we've witnessed the impacts of this pandemic on our children as well. I want to acknowledge we have Dr. Mora here with us, who is our behavioral health medical director. And Dr. Mora and his team have been monitoring the impacts of behavioral health on adolescents in Stanislaus County during this pandemic. So should any member of the board have questions related to mental health issues related to children today, Dr. Mora is here today, and he can try to answer your questions. I do want to also acknowledge that we've seen some development in the last day that was news to us, and at least after we posted our agenda item on Friday. We did see that the Modesto City School Board, their Board of Education, actually took action last night to approve an advocacy letter to the state of California that is specifically targeted towards the subject of face coverings for students. This is significant because this is our largest school district in Stanislaus County. I have provided copies of that letter to each member of the board here. There's a stack of extra copies in the back table there if anybody's interested in reading a copy of that. If you have not seen that, or if you did not get to see that during the Modesto City Schools Board of Education meeting last night. They did approve that letter unanimously. It'll be sent off to the state of California. I think the reason that I bring this up today is that that letter really does encapsulate many of the issues that I've heard from this board since our last meeting 2 weeks ago, as I've come to meet with you individually to talk about these subjects, to talk about some of the things that are important to you in trying to help navigate through this issue. So I thought I'd bring a copy of it that just materialized. I also want to recognize that I did have a good conversation yesterday with Superintendent of Education Scott Kuykendall. He strongly supports the letter from the Modesto City Schools. Also spoke with another. I also spoke with another large school district, and I expect other school districts in Stanislaus County to consider similar actions here in the very near future. I would be remiss if I didn't also acknowledge that while we were in this meeting today, or just prior to, the rules continue to evolve. Just today, this morning, we're seeing news reports that the Center for Disease Control are now updating their standards for masking in schools, and they're actually stiffening those requirements. And they're moving towards a more strict standard, and that's a recommendation at the federal level, but we also know that many states follow those recommendations. The CDC essentially, from what I've read just in news reports over the last hour, appears to be aligning their recommendations with what the state of California has already done. So I bring that forward not because that's something that we're advocating for or anything like that, but what's important to us and what's our job as staff here at Stanislaus County is to make sure that all the information is available to the Board of Supervisors so that you can have a robust discussion. I want to recognize that we have two specific recommendations before you today. One was to accept this update from county staff, but the other is to discuss options for follow-up actions as desired by the Board of Supervisors. So we are here to follow your direction and guidance as you seem fit, and I'd be happy to answer any questions before we open it up for public comment.
Any questions for Dr. B, Marianne? Okay, we're going to go on to the public comment portion of this item. So, a couple of things. Number one, if you have signs and you want to hold them up high, you're going to have to go to the back of the room, or else just hold them in your lap. We can see them. And I'm going to call two people up at a time, the primary speaker and who's on deck. Please come to the center aisle so we can get through them faster. And at the end, if you didn't fill out a speaker card, you can still speak. I'll just open it up at the very end. The first speaker card is Mr. Frank Johnson, and it will be followed by Amy Hughes. You were the first one in here with the first card.
Good morning.
Good morning, Frank. Good morning.
Chairman, Supervisors, Frank Johnson, ex-president with the NAACP, now president of the NAAAP, and CEO of IHAS, Interventional Health Administrative Services. A little background, I've been in the school district with a medical mobile unit for the past going on 4 years until the pandemic hit, which was 2.5 years inside Ceres Unified School District. We've been seeing the parents who are undocumented, but the children were born here in the United States. Well, the parents didn't have any form of medical, so we were brought in to do full medical vitals on the parents and full assessments. My question is now, being that there are many laws in place to protect these children, and these laws protect the parents, giving them full custody, full rights of the final say. My question is, what are the paradigms when I've seen the system within the school districts already broken down medically? A lot of parents are never notified of the situations that are going on with their children in the school districts now. The issue is, if this pandemic is so severe that the students have to be masked, then what's the purpose of the vaccine? If the vaccine is not doing its job and it's a threat, then who's to say what a parent can do with their child? So there's a lot of paradigms that are missing within this structure, this medical structure. There's a HIPAA. There's the age limit. A child is not acceptable in a court of law until the age of 12, when they have reasonable sound mind to make decisions. So this is a very fine line, and that's why these lawsuits have erupted up at the state level. Also, who's going to diagnose the symptoms? An RN can't diagnose the symptoms. Only a medical director or a doctor can only diagnose. So is each school going to have this medical personnel, this doctor or medical director at the school site? We can't take temperatures in this heat. We go out almost every weekend with this medical unit, and it was to the point where the temperatures were so hot outside that everybody had a temperature. So a temperature is one of the signs of the virus. So now that creates another obstacle. So there's many, many paradigms that haven't been put in place. forcing masks on children, and there's only been one death, am I not mistaken? Only one death. And you're forcing the parents to do what the government says this is what you're going to do with your child. Well, that's stepping on constitutional rights.
Hold on, Frank. I'm going to ask, please let Frank finish, and then you have an opportunity to clap. But let the speakers finish before you intervene. Go ahead, Frank.
Thank you. This is a very serious issue. It's not to be taken lightly. We're talking health, mental health. We're talking paradigms that don't even exist. We're talking lawsuits. We're talking federal. We're talking state. We're talking city, county. To make a vast decision without anything in place. We don't even have the proper medical staff at the schools to diagnose whether a child has the virus or not. In fact, we don't have laboratories to send back the results in a timely manner. So, is that my time?
Complete, no, because you were interrupted. Go ahead. Go ahead and complete.
My point is, this is an issue that should be tabled, researched, and brought back. Thank you.
Thank you. Amy Hughes, followed by Amanda Stahl.
Hi
Morning.
there.
Morning.
My name's Amy Hughes. I have been a special education teacher. I'm an elementary school teacher for Modesto City Schools for the past 10 years. I also am a parent of a student that's going to be at a Modesto City Schools this coming year. I'm here to ask you to advocate for what's best for students today. I think that should be our priority. We heard the data, and I think that we see the numbers and we see how the impact COVID has on students. I've spoken to countless parents, teachers, and even administrators who all have expressed that they don't want to see students continuing to wear masks, and they don't believe that's what's best for students. However, here we are. Regardless of the data that was shown today, those who want to be vaccinated have had the opportunity. So I'm not suggesting we not continue to try to advertise vaccinations, but it seems like we will be in this predicament for years if we're going to continue like this. And I would hope that we won't have students wearing masks for years. As a parent, it makes me sick to my stomach to see my child and other people's children losing out on so many important social cues and skills. I had an opportunity recently to visit my child's classroom for next year, and as I walked in, it hurt my stomach. It was hard to not cry what I saw in that classroom. As a teacher, it saddens me that we expect our young students to learn pronunciation, phonemic awareness, direct reading instruction, and social emotional skills with a mask on. As a teacher, I have taught direct reading instruction at the elementary level, and I could tell you that it is impossible as a teacher for me to see and to teach mouth and tongue position, to demonstrate it, to practice it, and to make sure my students are doing it correctly. The community, parents, students, and teachers have all voiced concerns and have all been advocating for students. Regardless of what the state's guidelines and recommendations are, we hope today that you, as a board, will choose to advocate for our children. Let's not wait. As a county, we should set an example that we will do what's best for our students. I hope today that you choose to be leaders and not followers. Thank you for your time, hearing me personally, and also hearing other community members and parents speak on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Amanda Stahl, followed by Don Hessel.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairman and Board. Thank you for hearing me this morning. I appreciate your time.
My name is Amanda Stahl, and I'm a credentialed teacher. I also have a background in degree of child development. I'm also a mother of 3. I come here today because I'm passionate about taking care of my kids. I'm going to give you 3 numbers right now. The first number is 21. The second number is 27. The third number is 0. In the most recent letter to all Californians from the governor's office dated July 12, 2021, 21 times the word recommendation was used. 27 times the word guidance was used. 0 was the number of times law was used. I quote from this letter directly, "Variations require K-12 administrators to make decisions about the use of COVID-19 prevention strategies in their schools. You are required to make decisions, that's it. So please think about who these decisions are for." I also want to quote from the same letter. "In an effort to streamline and tailor this decision-making process for California context, guidance regarding each of these measures that can be used is provided for you. I refuse to accept that the excuse is, it's a law, we have to follow this. It's not the law, it's the easy way out. Sometimes recommendations from the government are not effective, we know that. We cannot assume that recommending healthy children wear a mask for durations of time will not have a negative lifelong outcome. You can't promise me that. If you were able to show me the science that supports masking our children only in a classroom, then I might be able to wrap my brain around this. But there isn't any data that supports this. In fact, there is more data that goes against children wearing masks. From a developmental perspective, I can tell you that the physiological and psychological effects of mask wearing is not worth it. Lack of social and emotional development, depression, fear, anxiety, bacteria, shortness of breath, weakened immune system, suicide, delayed language development, compromised cognitive performance, and the list goes on. So when you are making decisions for parents, and just going along with these guidances and recommendations, I hope you have also educated yourself on the toll it will take. There is no data anywhere, both countries that have lockdown and countries that haven't, showing that children are at risk with COVID-19 or its variants, or that teachers are at risk from children not being masked in the classroom. So why are we pushing this so hard? Why are we making this such a problem and so detrimental to our children and our education system? As a teacher, I will tell you right now that on my caseload alone, I dealt with at least 1 suicide attempt, 3 students who became severely depressed, and an 8-year-old that developed anxiety in the past several months. I will also tell you that as a teacher, it is not my job to be the mask police. I want children in my classroom to feel safe with me, safe to learn, safe to smile, and safe to speak up. Not punished because they won't wear a mask or get vaccinated. And as a parent, well, I gave birth to them. I helped them wipe their nose and tie their shoe. I told them and helped them when they didn't feel good. And I showed them how to wash their hands and a cough in their elbow. Not you, not the district or the CDC or another teacher. Bottom line is parents and students should have the right to make their own choice on what goes on their body. Just the same as if I decide to wear a jacket on a cold day. I want to believe in my heart of hearts that the administrators who are making decisions for our schools have really thought these things through and put children first, but if that were the case, I probably wouldn't be here. Districts and counties across California are failing our children, and frankly, I as a parent just don't trust that my child will be taken care of in the education system. As we move forward into a new school year, I start to wonder, when is enough going to be enough? When will attendance drop so low that schools have to close completely? I know I have had enough, and I urge you to ask yourself the same question. Are we really doing the right thing here? I urge you today, please do not accept moving forward with guidance that has no bearing and doesn't give parents the right to make decisions for their kids. Thank you.
Dawn Hessel, and next up is Deanna Kerr. Dawn, you're up. And then on deck, Deanna.
Thank you, Honorable Supervisors, and especially thank you, the members of the public,
who have come to voice their concerns. This is government of, for, and by the people. Your people too. You're supervisors, but you were elected by the people. One was appointed, but 4 of you were elected to represent the people in your districts. Now, I don't know how you're going to find out that information as to what they want, but I would start with the people who took time out of their day, came here to show you that they support no masks. Something missing in your report, ma'am, was how many people that were wearing masks contracted the virus or died of the virus. I've done my own study. So with the deficit of reliable information on the effectiveness of masks, we conducted our own beta test in our area. Yay, Oakdale. Anyway, we consider jobs like ours to be essential. Water and wastewater operations, construction, other services to the people to be essential, like first responders, medical field, and who would have guessed politicians are all considered to be essential. Now, I suggest that had politicians had to sit home with no paycheck when we locked down the state, we would have seen the lockdown really go away real fast. We wore no masks. The 100 people in my study wore no masks. We shook hands. We hugged each other. We did our jobs day to day. There was not one person in that group to come down with the COVID. The ones that we knew in our sphere of influence who gained the reputation of being COVID people wore masks. They were social distanced. They acted scared everywhere they went. Give me a break. What are masks doing? There is no proof that masks do anything. You ain't got this little paper thing in your faces. You're talking about a virus here. The only thing it did do was trap that crap so that those people continue to breathe in and out whatever germs they had. Mercy. And these facts will be considered to be misinformation because they are not in the narrative accepted by the government. And you talked about the federal government and their stricter lockdown stuff. This is the same administration that approves of killing children in their mother's womb because a mom thought, hey, I don't want it anyway. But they're concerned about children wearing masks? I think not. How appropriate to have the Child Support Awareness Month lady speak before this, who brought to mind and brought to the table that parents that are involved in their children's lives are more successful, they get higher incomes, they are healthier, they are smarter. Whoa! The parents in this room, who would you ask as a representative of those people, what do you think we should do? Well, I would think I would look around and say, these are the people that came, these are the people that took out of their busy day. These women have busy schedules. These men possibly came from work. These women possibly came from work to address you and stand before you and say, we don't want masks. So I want to remind you that you all took an oath of office, at least the elected ones. I would imagine the appointed one also took an oath of office to defend the Constitution. The Constitution, which is all about our rights. There's stuff in it about how to form the government of and for by the people, but then it talks about the rights of the people. What do they have rights to? Well, they at least have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I took my right into consideration and continue to work and put food on the table for my family and to make sure that we were viably, financially on board, and also because I love to work. And I enjoy being out in the community, and I enjoy people. I enjoy touching them. I enjoy greeting them. I enjoy loving them. And a mask didn't let my smile show up. So you took an oath of office to defend those freedoms. I suggest you do that. And if you don't, there are alternatives. You already heard about the lawsuit for the state. Well, guess what? Lawsuits can be more personally directed towards people that make decisions of their own volition or because the state told them to and ignore their constituents.
Thanks, Don. Time is up.
Thank you.
So next up, we have Deanna Cryer and Cassie Azevedo. And please direct your comments to the board, not to the audience, on a go-forward basis.
Masks should be optional. There's no question. I'm going to show you a picture of my daughter, who I lost to suicide for being isolated 5 days after her boyfriend took his life. We had to move into our new home 2 days after she died. That isolation doesn't stop just because of social distancing or staying home and being at school online. That has nothing to do with it. Yes, that's part of it. It's not everything. Because masks, they did studies where babies, if you sit in front of them and you don't smile, they're sad. They miss their milestones. These kids aren't seeing their friends smile. They're not able to interact. Their immune systems. I'm going to quote something because I think the way that it's written is amazing. It says, I apologize, other medical harms relate to the notion that children and adolescents have an extremely active and adaptive immune system, a system that must be challenged in order to retain functionality. Yet by severely restricting children's activities because of lockdowns and masking, we are probably hobbling their immune systems. Evidence indicates that regular physical activity and frequent exercise enhances competency, immune competency, and regulation. We didn't lock down. My family and I decided that we were going to go ahead and we were going to have friends over to swim. I'll tell you something, other than sinus infections because of wearing a stupid mask, not one of us has been sick one time. I had 3 surgeries, walked around hospitals, no mask. My husband's been exposed at work, tested, nothing. We have no data that suggests that masks are effective. Once they're saturated or touched, they're no longer going to be effective. They've already got germs from everywhere else. Besides the fact that all of this sanitizer, I bet if I looked on the bottle of that sanitizer, it's going to say, don't let children use it more than twice a day. And yet they're using it how many hundreds of times in a week? And think about what you say, we take antibiotics too often. What does it create? Creates bacteria that are resistant. What do you think sanitizing is doing to a virus? We're creating a superbug that there's nothing that's going to touch it. All because our kids are wearing masks. They have no immune systems. Think about a sedentary body. Okay, here, 3 surgeries, gained a lot of weight. A sedentary body doesn't remember how to burn calories efficiently. An immune system doesn't know how to fight even the most simple virus if it's never challenged, if it's never worked. There's no way these kids should be wearing masks. Absolutely none. It should be a personal choice. Do I care? If you choose to wear a mask, that's on you. That's your responsibility. If I choose to send my kids to school without a mask, that's my responsibility. I'm not going to hold the school responsible if they get sick. That was my choice. But it is my choice as their parent. I don't want anybody else to have to deal with what we're dealing with. I shouldn't have lost my child to suicide. My 12-year-old is now 14. When for 5 weeks during that lockdown, when they wouldn't let 7th and 8th graders go to school, I spent 5 weeks sitting outside of his room on a stool all night long. People that were living with us at the time handled school time for him because I needed sleep, because he was talking about suicide. He finally told me, Mom, I'm not going to do it. I saw the other side of it. If she hadn't taken her life, I would have buried my 12-year-old. All because of a stupid policy about guidance. It's not a law. It's not a rule. Drop it.
Sorry for your loss, Deanna. Next up is Cassie Azevedo, followed by Ariana Azevedo. Hello.
I am not a public speaker whatsoever, but I know that you guys know why we're all here and what we all have to say, but I have found confidence in the conversations that I have had with friends who could not attend today because they are working or unable to attend. We don't want to wear the mask. No one in this room is wearing a mask, and no one here.
He wants to talk.
We're not asking that masks are banned. We're just asking that it be a choice for all of them to make. Right now, I'm letting it be my child's choice if they want to attend school, and right now they don't want to. It's really unfortunate over the last year to watch your children's confidence decline because when they attend school, they can't read emotion from their friends. They don't know if they're accepted. They don't know how to feel. I know, baby. So right now I'm leaving the choice up to my children if they want to attend, and if that means that we homeschool, and we're very fortunate that we're going to be able to do that. Unfortunately, there are hundreds and thousands of kids whose parents have to go to work to provide for their family, and they don't have that choice, and they're literally just being forced to mask their children and to cause potential harm by the bacteria and the sickness that they can get. Thank you, baby. Yeah. You know how we feel. We want you to stand up for us. We want you to know that we stand behind you when you go, when you speak, whoever you can speak to. I don't know who to speak to. I'm so frustrated because you tell us that your hands are tied. The school tells us to talk to you. You tell us to talk to the school. I don't know who to talk to. Who are we supposed to speak to?
That's really interesting, an interesting comment, because we did have after our last meeting, I just want to address that really quick. We had someone from a school district tell me that it was the county's guidance that was clearly in charge. That's what the superintendent from Oakdale had said. And I think, Marianne, you had responded to them. And so too often we were talking around each other rather than to each other. And I think we've discussed that now, and I think we're doing a better job. It is, without a doubt, California Department of Public Health is the one that has the rules. It is not the county. The county is not more restrictive than the state of California in any way currently. And Dr. V, you can either shake your head yes or no if I'm correct or incorrect.
You are correct.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. And that would be the state. And we heard earlier from our CEO that schools will have the ability on the enforcement side, but they're not going to have the say. The school boards are not going to be the ones to allow or disallow masks from CDPH, unless you accept the responsibility. I guess that would be the statement. But it's coming from the California Department of Public Health. The CDC provides guidance. And Dr. V, can you explain why theirs always says recommended rather than you have to?
CDC has said they do not have the legal authority to require, so they recommend or strongly recommend.
Yeah. So, very simple. So I just wanted to address that, but I appreciate that question.
So if the CDC is making the recommendation, who is making it the requirement? The California
Department of Public Health.
And they're basing that off the PCR testing that came out that they can't differentiate between the flu and COVID. I noticed that was in your data. And I also noticed that there was no data regarding children until the very last slide when you wanted to say that there was one child who had died and you didn't mention if they had any underlying health issues.
Okay.
We want our children to go back so bad. I want them to have a social life, and they don't even want to. They don't want to go to school. Like, how sad is that? Do you know where I should be today? Where should you guys be? I should be having fun with my kids on the beach. It's summertime right now. Do you know how bored my kids are sitting here? They've asked me for snacks. They've asked me to go. They've asked me for phones and toys. Like, no one wants to be here. We shouldn't be here. We're ruining our summer. Do you want to talk, baby? My daughter wanted to say something. Do you want to say something,
Ariana, do you?
Say it, baby. They all want to hear what you want to say.
Pull the mic down for her if she wants to speak.
You want me to tell them what you want to say? She wanted to say that she doesn't want to go to school with a mask.
Thank you. Next up will be Rob Robbins, followed by Adele Quisenberry, I think.
First of all, thank you guys for giving me the moment to speak. I am also not a public speaker, but I do have a few things that I would like to get off my chest. I have a 5-year-old daughter who does not understand when someone's wearing a mask and she smiles and says hi to them, that this person doesn't say hi or smile back. She can't tell what's going on. She can't see them. When other kids are wearing masks, she can't see if that kid is smiling. She wants to be included. She wants to play. I'll say this. You know, there's some amazing parents here. I would assume that all of you are very competent parents that have kids. Are we here to say that we're going to allow somebody else to tell us what's best for our kids? Or are we going to say that, you know what, I'm a pretty competent parent. I think I can do a pretty good job of raising my own child how I see fit. Now, when I grew up, I'm a little bit older than I look, but when I grew up, when we got hurt or we got sick or we cut ourselves or fell down on the playground, we rubbed dirt on it, you got back up, you drank water out of the water hose, right? And you went about your business and played. We didn't care what anybody's religious preference was. We didn't care what their political thoughts were. Most of us didn't even know what politics were when we were kids. But now our kids are being inundated with politics. Politics. My daughter's 5. She does not care about politics. Try to have a 2-second conversation about politics with a 5-year-old. Okay? And right now, like many other people, I should be at work trying to provide for my child. Great information from you two doctors. I appreciate that. But really, it overcomplicates a walk in the park. Okay? Because I can make all these fancy diagrams as well. I can make them up myself. And the one word that stands out to everybody is required. Is it required that we wear a mask? That our kids wear a mask? Is school? Where are the long-term studies that show that wearing a mask is not harmful to our children? Where is it at that it's not harmful to adults? Right? There isn't any. Right? And then the agenda of trying to push the vaccine on everybody, and now we're lowering the age. These vaccines were an emergency situation. They weren't even approved by the FDA. Maybe that's changed, but as far as I know, that has not changed. PCR test, that's a joke. It's really interesting that all of the information about the PCR test from the inventor of the PCR test stated if you use it enough, if the sequencing of the DNA has been sequenced enough, you're going to get a positive. It could be for freaking cat dander. Okay? You're going to get a positive for cat dander, but we're going to label it COVID. We're going to label it COVID. Are we just trying to scare everybody? Thank you. We're trying to scare everybody. And now we're trying to scare our kids. We're trying to scare our kids? What kind of human being thinks it's a funny idea to try to scare a bunch of kids that if you don't wear a mask, you're going to die? That if you're not vaccinated, you're killing people? Are you kidding me? Shame on you if you believe that's the truth. Common sense is such a lost art right now. It is such a lost art. Okay? Now, common sense says to me that if it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, and waddles like a duck, it's probably a duck. Okay? Myself, I got sicker than a dog in 2019. Sicker than I've been in years. Did we know it was COVID? No, weren't sure. I got sick again in December of 2020. I never go to the doctor. Half the time I just heal myself. Because why? I have an immune system. I don't use hand sanitizer. Right? I do wash my hands when I come out of the bathroom, just for you. I don't care. But I don't use hand sanitizer. I'm not wearing a mask 99% of the time. And if I get sick, I get sick. That's my choice. And that's up to me to get myself better. I'm not going to blame a doctor if I don't get better. I'm not going to blame a teacher if my child gets sick at school. She's around a bunch of other snotty-nosed kids that are all playing together, shaking hands, and sharing everything, including germs. Right? But if we're trying to hide our kids from germs, if we're trying to tell them that you have to wear a mask while you're in class and you can't breathe, you can't study, you can't focus because you're worried about this mask irritating the back of your ears after a few minutes, and you want a 5-year-old to wear a mask for 6 hours, except when they're outside and that's optional, shame on you. Shame on you. We are trying to raise our kids to have a belief in our political system, our government, and our freedom in the greatest country in America, in the world, sorry. And yet here we are trying to scare them into saying that if they don't do what they're told by people who shouldn't be telling them what to do, that they're in the wrong. And we as parents are sitting here saying, wait, I think I can make that decision on my own.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you.
Next up is Adele Quisenberry, followed by Kimberly Valente. Did I get the name right?
Good morning. Hi, Adele Quessenberry. I'm here advocating for my grandkids. I have 3 in grammar school and 1 in junior high. I think one of the things that might be missing here is separating political. Let's get the political business out of it. I was disturbed when I read the article Saturday in the Modesto Bee that the board here said they were glad that, and I'm kind of paraphrasing this, that they have 3 new members on this board, and now we're not so right-leaning. And I thought, really? So let's set that aside, and let's be more interested in what's best for the children. So I'm not here for the political part or either way. I'm saying like everybody else said, let the parents decide. If the children go to school without a mask, there's the Modesto City Schools is the district my kids are in. They have the virtual school. The ones that are afraid, stay home and do that. Let the others go free. There's a way to there's a great way to decide how to do this. Some don't want masks. If you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. What I don't like, and I've held my voice for a long time because I pick my grandkids up from school a couple of days a week, and when my grandson came and said, Noni, I was outside playing, and I was so tired, and I ran so fast, I had to take my mask off to breathe. The yard duty came to me and said, put that mask on and stand in that square for 5 minutes. I said, what? Now, of course, apparently this year they can be without mask outside, so what's going to happen inside the classroom if they want to pull the mask off and breathe? So I find that disturbing because what kind of country do we live in? So I hope that doesn't happen to any other child, but I think you should be aware of that. The other thing is that I immediately, at the beginning of all this pandemic, got the CDC and read it clearly through. And it's long. But you don't get to the good stuff until you get to the bottom, or to the back of it, or to the end of it, where they talk about how you wear the mask properly and how all this is supposed to happen, and that the general public can't put the mask on and wear it properly because once they touch it, it's infected. So how does this, that seems kind of, how are we going to get that to work? Even the healthcare, they even stated in here, healthcare workers having a hard time even wearing it properly, let alone children. So after I read that, then I read an information about when kids wear a mask, the amount of diseases and things after about 4 or 5 women had their kids' mask tested. Here's a list of how many diseases were found on those masks after those kids wore the mask, and how dangerous those masks are for the children. I mean, you can go on and find it. I mean, it's half of the masks were contaminated with 1 or more strains of pneumonia causing bacteria, 1/3 of the contaminated with strains of meningitis caused bacteria, 1/3 were contaminated with dangerous antibiotic resistant bacterial pathogens, and so on. I mean, so when you put a mask on a child, even after a few minutes with a mask on, they are not getting the proper amount of oxygen needing for them to actually function and learn properly. So I find it interesting that we can't come to some sort of decision on, like everybody's talked about. I think that parents have jurisdiction over their children, not the state, not the county, not the schools. And so because of that, I find that we need to let the politics be aside because there's so many differences of opinion on that. And that's fine. I don't have any problem with how everybody wants to do, but let the parents decide. The kids can come to school, some with masks, some with not masks. Teachers are vaccinated, and they shouldn't be fearful. And as everybody has said, and rightfully so, I think you need to take in consideration, and the Modesto City School Board also needs to take in consideration what's necessary for the children more than what people's political view is. So I hope today, with all that was talked about, that we can come to some sort of conclusion. Recommendations are fine. Let the individual families decide what they want to do. It's really interesting. I heard this thing, and I think it's true. Today we are witnessing an historic attack on truth, and are witnessing the death of logic. And I think that's what's happening.
Thank you. Thank you, Adele. Kimberly Valente, followed by Chris Balcom. Kimberly Valente, followed by Chris Balcom.
Hello again, I'm Kimberly.
Hello.
I'm a school psychologist. I work for Modesto City Schools. I spoke with the city board, or their board meeting last night as well. And I'm just going to read what I wrote because it's kind of easier to stay within my time limit that way. In regard to, today we're discussing our options for follow-up action. The enforcement of guidelines and mandates is in our hands at the local level, the enforcement, right? That's what we're being told. So I will continue to encourage you to stand firm in your convictions and assert your authority and your position on matters of importance publicly and with clarity and clear intent, so that we know who we voted for, what you stand for, and how to proceed in the future as a people and as a community. Also, the Modesto Bee's reporting on this matter appears heavily skewed. Nothing is fairly reported on any of this, and honestly, nothing they report actually tells a story at all. It's very clear that they have an agenda against you all for some reason, or are heavily funded by entities that hate us. For a local news reporting agency, they're insulting and offensive to the community they serve. Journalists used to be the real freedom writers and truth seekers and truth tellers. This is a local community paper, but directly and overtly offends the community. This isn't journalism, this is selling yourself out to a narrative. I would think they could do better. Thank you to all of you for hearing us. I know that at least some of you are in perfect alignment with goodness. Please continue to seek guidance from within, and please pray. And to repeat some of what I shared with Modesto City Schools Board last night, with the letter that they're sending to the California Department of Public Health, they're seeking permission to lead from agencies which do not share our personal, professional, or public interests. And if you give your power of authority away to the guidance of public officials by saying there's nothing we can do or our hands are tied in response to guidelines and practices that we now know and are considered abusive and harmful, you will not be doing your job. It is within our right to refuse to engage in practices which we feel will lead to harm. Just because something is a law or a mandate does not make it right. And they clarified for me after the meeting last night that, in fact, it is a law to follow guidance because it's a mandate and et cetera. But it's just a bunch of verbal cages that they put us in. It's nonsense. There have been countless laws, policies, and practices in our history which would now be considered inhumane. And the enforcement of these specific mandates in question is up to us at the community level. I disagree that we are not personally responsible for the good and the harm that we knowingly engage in. And allowing the enforcement of mask wearing to become a discipline issue in the hands of teachers will become a liability issue. Those things are happening. They are being, it's sad. It's very, very sad. Keep in mind that teachers have to assess and determine whether a child is in distress, nearing panic, or experiencing an asthma attack, sad, scared, mad, or whether they're defying authority or just seeking comfort. I am asking that the guidance coming directly from local leadership aligns with the concept of every human having personal autonomy over the decision to wear a mask. This is a simple thing. I'm asking that students are given the clear message that while masks are strongly encouraged, they will not be penalized in any way for not wearing them, but that they can, in fact, and are encouraged to do what feels healthy and safe in their own bodies. Stripping them of such a personal right with the implied threat of illness, punishment, or removal from campus is sending the entirely wrong message to them. A message that implies their vulnerability to something that poses literally 0% threat to them. It also tells them that how they feel doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that you can't breathe, can't hear, can't understand what your friends are feeling because you can no longer refer to facial expressions. During a critical time in their development where faces and development of social skills are so important. It doesn't matter that mask wearing makes you anxious, hot, and uncomfortable. It doesn't matter that this all makes no sense. We just do what we're told. This is a wrong and dangerous message to send to everyone here. This is changing their brains permanently, literally, changing their brains permanently and literally. It's changing our communities profoundly, and it's entirely in our hands to fix this for them. And the damage is compounded month after month of this. The real emergency is coming from this youngest generation in the future. Be ready. And the impact to them can be lessened by the choices we make today. Please leave enforcement in the hands of the individual and the family. Please do not think that you can escape accountability for the harm you allow by hiding behind a mandate. We can act as messengers of what the mandate states while encouraging individual autonomy and authority over whether we engage in them or not, without the implied threat of punishment, being ostracized, or loss of freedom. That is a message that can be sent. You can say, this is the guidance, but we don't agree. We'll figure this out together. School districts have a ton of money, and real educators will teach kids outside for free because that's what they were born to do. Kids will learn even if it's not in public education classrooms, and they'll learn more and they'll learn better than they do in what has become a truly toxic setting. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you very much. Chris Balcom, followed by Ashley Van Dyne.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate being able to share my personal experience with COVID as it relates to children. My wife and I are the oldest of 3 generations living together out in the country. We have 5 adults and 5 children. 7 months ago, COVID came to the ranch. When one of the adults caught it, diagnosed positive, it showed all the symptoms, we all got it. But to be clear, I mean to say all of the adults got it, all 5 adults. And it was pretty bad, worse than any flu I've ever had. None of the 5 children experienced any difficulty from COVID, even though all 5 of us adults had it at the time. So when it comes to masks for children, it just doesn't even seem to pass the laugh test. Why would they be wearing masks? If we're talking about masks on adults, okay, maybe we could debate that. But it doesn't seem like we should even be debating why children would be wearing masks in schools. Earlier today, Mr. Chairman, you mentioned that children were vulnerable. Indeed, they're vulnerable. They have to do whatever the big people tell them. And it seems we're being told by people bigger than us, who claim they're being told by people bigger than them, that it's trickling down. And so now we have to do it. It just doesn't seem right. And you know, if all of this is coming from the CDC, how can we even trust them if, after everything they've said, after all the studies they've shown, they haven't even told us anything about antibodies? All 5 of us adults have had it, and they don't even address, okay, so are we still at risk, that kind of thing. So they don't seem to be a trustworthy source for this advice that we're getting and following and passing on to the kids. So again, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Ashley Van Dyne, followed by Maurice Stucker. Is Ashley here? Is there? You're not Ashley, you're Marie? All right, I'm going to ask you to come up and I'll call Ashley again at the end of the meeting.
Thank you for hearing us today. I apologize if I get emotional, but this is something that I've been helping my children through with this over a year. I live in Turlock. My kids go to Denair. I have a BA in physical education, and over the past 20 years I've had numerous experience in the health industry. I just would like to start off with, when we are testing, like we said, this PCR test that is in a class 1 recall, which is the most serious recall. So how we can test is already up in the air, and we already just don't touch those. To the doctor here, I thank you guys for your job, and we know that you're doing your job, but I ask you that we do our job as parents. You said that you weighed your risk when you were coming here, and that you've been vaccinated, and that you're going to be in a building of people, and you got to choose whether you wore your mask or not, and you chose not to. I ask that we can do that for our children. If she can choose, why cannot we choose? If a doctor can choose, we should be able to choose for our kids. with all due respect, I do not co-parent with the government. I am my kids' advocacy. I choose for them. And I ask you, I know that you choose for your children and you love them. You would not want somebody to come into your house and tell you what you need to do with your kids. I know you wouldn't want that. Just to get a little bit more to the point here. If I, being a physical educator, viruses are not going away. They don't go away. We get viruses. We all, everywhere, okay? I know the cure. The cure is eating healthy. The cure is exercise. The cure is taking your vitamins. Okay, we all know this. The cure is oxygen. We need to breathe. Okay, our children need to breathe. If I were to come into your house, I guarantee you I would clean out your refrigerator. You would not like it. Okay, well, maybe you would like it. I don't know. Maybe you want me to come clean. I would come put you through an exercise regimen. I guarantee you would not like that. Okay, but it's healthy. It is for what you need. You need exercise. You need sun. You need oxygen. My kids, when they had to wear masks, my kids are healthy. We exercise. We eat healthy. We try to eliminate all toxins that we can. My kids have had more headaches this last year from wearing the mask. All the time, headaches. The masks are actually making people sicker. I don't know if you guys know that. Like, it's not helping them mentally and physically. My husband is a PE teacher in Ceres, and kids were outside, and they were crying because they couldn't breathe because it was so hot. I know now it's different from outside, but he had to tell them to come over and take your mask off so you can get fresh air, and they wouldn't do it because they were scared. We can't do that. The goalposts keep getting pushed further and further back, and when is enough going to be enough? Okay? We keep pushing it further and further and further. We can't keep doing this. Somebody has to put their foot down and say enough is enough. Can our county please just be the example? Okay, we don't need to follow the California Department of Health. They're telling us guidances, and they're telling us this. Let's set the standard for our county. Okay, I will be more than happy to meet with the county health department to get along and say, listen, this is what we need to do to stay healthy. We need to build immune systems. If you want a plan, I'll bring you a plan. Baseless science on masks. We've already listened to all the baseless science. If you want science, I will bring it. I didn't bring it right now because I would have a fat binder, and I know we don't have time to go through that. Okay? I will talk with public health official if we need to do this. I know that the cure cannot be worse than what we're doing right now. So with that, I just please, I'm going to ask you to let the parents keep their right. Doctors get to make their decisions on whether they want to wear a mask. You guys make the decision to your family. Let us make decisions for our family. And that's it. Thank you.
Next up is Samuel Bosshart, followed by Joni Greep.
Greetings, members of the board. I speak today to ask the board, why does today's agenda lack an item for the Healthy Children resolution? I remember several members of the public spoke during public comments advocating specifically for this resolution to be taken up and placed on this meeting's agenda. According to the board's minutes, there were at least 3 members of the public who did so, and I was not one of those speakers. From what I understand, the resolution is absolutely something the board can put on its agenda, discuss, and pass, possibly with appropriate amendments. I may not have seen the exact same resolution that was emailed to the board by other members of the public. The one I read is on Kevin Kiley's website. He is a California legislator and candidate for governor. I'll take a couple minutes to read the be it resolved sections of the resolution for the sake of expediency, since there are a lot of whereases. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the El Dorado County Board of Supervisors establishes the following goals. Assist in the return of governing power for school safety protocols to the school districts themselves. Advocate for parental choice for maxing and vaccinating their children. Work towards removal of the county state of emergency status, which I think doesn't apply here. But ensure that mask guidelines will not be based on vaccination status. Be it further resolved, the Board of Supervisors is committed to assisting the local school districts in giving students an opportunity to return to normalcy in the classroom, including optional face coverings and removal of discriminatory vaccination status practices. Be it further resolved that the Board of Supervisors will seek out the assistance of any and all government agencies involved in the decisions regarding safety protocols in the school, specifically requesting assistance to make masks optional and relinquishing safety protocol decision-making power to the school district itself. Be it further resolved that the Board of Supervisors will send a written request to the California Department of Public Health requesting them to revise its guidance to eliminate any mask mandate for children in all settings throughout the state of California, at a minimum in the county, including in the classroom, at summer camp, and while participating in youth sports and/or exercise. And be it further resolved that the Board of Supervisors directs the clerk to transmit official copies of this resolution to the following: superintendents for all school districts within the county, the County Department of Public Health, California Congress members, California Governor, Cal OSHA, California Department of Public Health, and any other entities that the board deems appropriate for this resolution. So in closing, I'd like to ask again, why does today's agenda lack an item for the Healthy Children resolution, and what will the board do to rectify the situation? Thank you all.
Okay, next up we have Joni, I'm sorry, and followed by Sean Dobbins.
Hi, thank you for hearing me out. My name is Joni Greep, and I am a mom. And I have also been a registered nurse since 2005 with a background in pediatrics and emergency room experience. And I would like to say that the nursing side of my brain can make no sense over this mask mandate for the population that is at least risk for COVID. I can make no sense of it, and I have tried. I'm going to read to you what I wrote last week to my district representative, Mr. Condit, and this is just short. First, thank you for your service to our community. I am the concerned mother to 3 beautiful children in the Sylvan Union School District. They will be starting their 7th, 5th, and kindergarten years. I have spent many hours advocating to my school board representatives, my superintendent, and my principals this past year. I have advocated hard for students to get back in the classrooms. And now I'm advocating for students to have a choice to wear a face covering. I'm sure I don't need to provide you now with a unnecessary tirade of information about how potentially harmful and unnecessary face coverings are for our children. I am simply pleading with you on behalf of my children to do everything in your power to fight for their liberties. Use your position. Use your position for our kids.
It's okay.
As of Monday, my kids will no longer be in Sylvan Union School District. They're going to be in a private Christian school now. That is not what we wanted to do. I have been very involved for the last 8 years in Sylvan School District. And these are schools that we have loved
and teachers that we have loved. And it is with a very heavy heart that we are leaving the district.
With the exception of my junior hire, because he does not want to leave his friends. He would wear a hazmat suit if he could just stay with his friends. And I feel like that's what you're asking him to do, to wear a hazmat suit to stay with his friends. It's wrong. It's simply wrong. It feels like the state is waging psychological warfare on our kids. That's what it is. It's not okay. It's just not. Please fight for their liberties. I beg of you to fight for their liberties. The school district over and over and over again has told me that their hands are tied. Go somewhere else. I have written my state legislators. I have written the governor. I have called the governor's office. Who is going to stand up and say our kids are worth fighting for? So thank you for your time.
Thanks, Sonny. Next up is Sean Dobbins, followed by Kiera Nessel.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
July 12, 2021, California Department of Public Health issued, in my words, a global blueprint, guidance for K-12 schools in California for the 21-22 school year. Out of the three, to push mystery shots for all eligible individuals, universal masking in schools, and pushing more COVID-19 invasive testing and tracking programs. Now, we all know these shots are they're not vaccines. They're experimental medical procedures, and they only call them vaccines in order to escape liability. For the 42 U.S. Code 300 AA22, signed October 1, 1988, which states no vaccine manufacturer shall be liable in a civil action for damages arising from a vaccine-related injury or death. So they're not vaccines, they're gene-altering, dangerous technology. Please educate yourselves on it. And then the masks, right? They're dehumanizing. It's a muzzle. It's shown as a form of dominance, but for people that like to wear masks, it's a symbol of solidarity, right? You come in with your mask on, you take it off, just like in a restaurant, right? Makes a lot of sense. And pushing more of the COVID invasive testing and tracking programs. You saw the story yesterday, the PCR test, fraudulent, picking up flu. Yeah, what happened to the flu, by the way? Okay, what about those numbers? Anyway, the supervisors, I feel like we're wasting our time. Their handlers have already made their decision for them and are only here to manufacture a consensus, meaning they have already decided the future of our county, all throughout the country, but are just complying with this, the Bagley-Keene Act requiring the public get a seat at the table. And what Pocahontas, the senator, said, if you don't have a seat at the table, you're on the menu. Anyway, the board's decision to hold this meeting at 9 a.m. while most productive citizens are working is an indicator of the contempt these supervisors must have for their constituents. Or, I don't know, maybe I parked in a 2-hour parking, so maybe you guys will take care of that ticket. Traditionally, the elected supervisors, like our brother in Oakdale said, they take an oath of office. And by your actions last year and the ones you're about to partake in, you have not only violated your oath to the Constitution, but you're going to be complicit in violating the Nuremberg Code. The first of the code states that voluntary consent of the human subject is absolutely essential. But you're just doing your job, right? It's not mandatory until they get full FDA vaccination that CNN says will happen in September. Anyway, the supervisors will most likely tell you that a mask mandate is necessary because if you leave it up to the individual choice, you will get backlash from concerned parents. They're going to discuss how they receive feedback from the educators, principals, teachers, school workers, unions, admins, and that they all, the greater community overwhelmingly approve of the mask mandate and the job they've done. So the supervisors, I believe you will also tell us if you leave it up to the individual choice, it will cause confusion, that we need to be good citizens, just do the right thing. I've seen other board meetings all across the country, they all say the same stuff. And that's out of their hands and it's in the government hand, or the governor's hand. All while squandering 250 years of fighting for freedom and independence. So people are starting to stand up. We see, formerly free countries like England, France, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. It's too late for them. They have locked down their defenseless and unarmed populations. for 16 months, fined and locked up. Even in this country, people get fined and locked up by the police state while they allow anarchists and looters to run wild. We saw the riots last year. Anyway, these supervisors have one chance to get it right. They can be strong, which we hope they will be, or they can compromise our rights in order to facilitate and implement a unified world solution in lockstep, led by a technocracy that will drastically alter the course of this republic. And prolonging this fear-based psychological operation will eventually cement into our society a communist-style social credit system where a socially approved defamation will rule. You see Brian Stelter, get those anti-vaxxers, and the ability to feed oneself will be based on whether we comply or conform to meaningless mandates or not. This might seem a few years away, far off, tinfoil hat, right? But open your eyes and see that it's already here in California and it's coming fast to Stanislaus County. If you choose safety over freedom and pander to a few hysterical Karens that complied with every mandate, wore a mask in their car, ratted out local small business owners, and got a shot while forcing their limp-wristed husbands to do the same, you will alter our country and our children's future forever. It's not just about a virus, it's about using a perfect crisis to achieve world government that will demand a compliant and domesticated citizenry. Prove me wrong.
Kiara. Next up, Kiara Nessel. And just pull the microphone down for yourself. And is Ashley Van Dyne in the room? She is, get in line. All right.
My name is Kiara Nessel, and my school, we didn't go back. They had the option, if you could go back with a mask and like social distancing, or you could stay at home and do a packet that had all the work. And we didn't go back, and it was really hard. And we begged, my sister and I, we really wanted to go back, but then we went on a trip to Hawaii, and the flight was 5 hours, and the whole time we had to wear the mask, or a flight attendant would come and tell you, you need to put your mask up. And it was awful. So then after that, my dad said, no, you're not going to go back to school. And it was just really hard. And the rest of the time we were at home, and my sister had an online class and I did the packet. And then finally, right towards the end, we figured out a way so I could do it, and it wasn't that bad. But it was just awful. And none of us liked it, because usually my mom was used to going to the mall or to Costco while we were in school, so she could have her alone time. But she couldn't do that anymore when we were doing school at home, because she had to be there watching us when my dad wasn't there, and it was just hard on everybody, and we didn't like it. So all we want is just to go back to school normally.
Is Ashley Van Dyne back? Okay. So anyone else that wants to come up and speak, that's the last speaker card, just come up and get in line. Folks, state your name.
I might get emotional, sorry. My name is Jessica Clymer. As you can tell, I work in the medical field. I have to wear a mask at work. And I can tell you, I suffer from migraines. They have gotten 100 times worse. Brain fog is ridiculous. My kids went back to school last year. They begged to go back, so I let them go back. I gave them the choice. As you can tell, I've had to work this entire pandemic. Trying to work and take care of children at home that are trying to do online learning, computers that aren't working, office staff that won't help, was ridiculous. When you ask them questions as to why certain students can go back and others can't, they refer to Dr. V. When you reach out to Dr. V, you get no response back. it's just a circle of you ask this person asks this person, this person asks this person. I have no answers. My kids want to go back to school, but we don't want them in masks. They should have a choice to wear a mask. As she said, she has a choice, and she's choosing to not wear her mask here. She also stated, and I wrote this down when she said it, as you feel it's necessary. Those were her words today at this meeting. So as she felt it was necessary to or to not wear a mask, it should be up to us parents to do this. Working in the medical field, I've been exposed numerous times to COVID. I have no choice in the matter. I chose this job. I chose to put myself at risk to help millions of other people. I think that with great immune systems, that is how we fight this. It's not just put a mask on, because you're breaking your immune system. You are taking away from your ability to get oxygen. You're taking away your ability to do things. Last year, my son was in 4th grade. He's out running around on the playground. Can't breathe, takes his mask off. He got in trouble in front of the entire school. They berated him for it. He then was told, if you can't run around in a mask and you can't breathe, then don't exercise. Why are we telling our children to not exercise when all we've ever done is tell our kids PE is a very important part of their life? They need to do it. They need to be healthy. Why are we trying to mask healthiness with a mask? Like, all you're doing is taking one thing that you've been taught for your entire life and throwing it out the window for a mask. These things don't work. The second they touch their face, the mask is no longer good. I've gone through thousands of masks at work because the second you touch your face, you cannot continue to wear it. These children can't wear them correctly. The masks fall below their nose because they don't fit correctly. They get sent to the principal's office. They get suspended and sent home. These kids can't learn. They can't concentrate when they're fogged up in their brain because they can't concentrate on something because they can't breathe. When are you guys going to do enough for our children? When are you going to stand up for our children? And speaking here today, I might potentially lose my job. Because you can't speak out. You can't do this. You can't post this. You can't post that. But I'm here today because I don't care anymore. My kids are my priority, regardless if that means I may have to move out of state and take them somewhere where their priority and their decisions are their decisions. At what point are you going to stop? Because, oh, it's my body, my choice, but it's no longer my body, my choice with a mask. So at what point are you guys going to start saying my body, my choice? Because you do it with masks, and then it's going to go to the next thing, and the next thing, the next thing, where they're going to have no choices onto what is going to happen to them. You guys need to stand up for our children. If the kids don't want to wear a mask, don't. If the kids want to wear a mask, great. If the teachers don't want to wear a mask, great. If they do, then they do. If they don't want to be exposed, they can teach online. They can make their choice to do an online instead of an in-person. I know so many teachers who just want to go back and be able to see the smiles on their kids' faces, who want to be able to be there and be how it was before. And viruses are viruses. The flu strain is different every single year. This COVID is going to be no different. It's going to be a new strain every year, a new booster every single year. Nothing's going to change. So is this going to be 10 years down the line before you guys finally say, oh, it's the flu? Our kids can go back without a mask because they didn't have a mask in the flu season. They don't have a mask in the cold season. So when are you guys going to do something for our children? You guys are here with recommendations, not requirements. So stand up for our kids and let our kids go back to normal.
Just for the record, we don't know each other, but I'm a teacher. My name's Holly Bengula, and what I'm going to say is probably just going to seem like I'm making all these semantic points that are not related, which is kind of how my brain feels right now, and I'm sure yours do too. But a few years ago, I did a project in my class about when it's okay to rebel against authority. And it was a history project, and the outcome was just better than I had ever expected because it brought up a lot of times in history when people had to stand up against injustice. And you guys have said today that your hands are tied, that you don't get to make this decision. I can't count how many times people have been told they can't make a change and that they can't do something
when they can. This isn't a law, and you're not breaking any rules by taking action today. I urge you to see what would be the outcome if you tried it. You might be putting your position at risk just like I am right now, and it's very scary. I have 4 children, 2 of which are school age. My son's kindergarten year was complete and utter mess, but I talk to parents every single day who are not necessarily educators, and their kid experienced the same thing, only theirs they're not recognizing phonics, phonemic awareness. They're not able to read going into first grade. That's not abnormal. It's okay. We'll make up for it, but we can't go back with lackluster effort. You did say earlier that it's up to the schools to decide how to enforce the mask. So the questions that I have for you right now, you're probably not going to answer, but they're going through my mind. 1, what happens to my children if I send them to school without a mask? Is someone else going to put the mask on my kid? Who? 2, what disciplinary action are you saying the schools are going to be able to decide and take against my child for not wearing a mask? What disciplinary action is going to be taken against me if I choose not to enforce it? Do you want certain teachers out of the classroom? That's kind of what it feels like is happening. If we don't comply, our choice is to leave. I don't want to leave. I was born to be a teacher, and I'm going to continue to do that. I just don't want to have to find alternative avenues to do so. The other point that I'd like to make, since I have a little bit more time, is that other states are choosing not to mask. And only 10 in the United States are masking. We happen to be one of them. My family is in between deciding and making arrangements to leave this state because of that, or we're hoping the re-election of the governor happens. I do have a couple more, but the last one is I withdrew from the teachers union. Because they're not going to have my money and try to tell me how I have to behave and what I have to do to be a teacher. And so that's pretty much it. I'm asking you, it's a call to action. Please do not let someone tell you that you cannot do something. You're capable, you can do it, and you have the support. There are teachers that are not afraid. There are nurses that are not afraid. And if people are, they can choose to stay home. Thank you.
Hello to the board. Manny Gruhl, some of the people that I know on the board. Mr. Terry Woodrow. My name is Catherine Knightsby. I'm actually a real estate broker. I've come to a couple of these, 1-2 weeks ago, and I had thought, my nephew and I, he's a real estate agent, we were thinking, is it possible that the family, the parents, could be asked to sign a waiver? Being a contract person, real estate people were kind of like attorneys, but, a little bit lower down the chain. But we were thinking, is it possible that since so many of these people, and I don't want to address the people here, but I do feel a really deep admiration for the love and concern that we're seeing here both times we came. And I did grow up in the Bay Area during busing, and I was in busing. I chose to be in busing. My parents wanted me to go to private high school, and I was in busing, and I got beat up sometimes almost every day. So I know what kids experience on the firing lines of these kinds of political situations. And I was just wondering, is it possible that the family could be presented with the option of signing a waiver, a medical waiver, stating that the school board and the supervisors in the state of California and the medical personnel in the medical industry would not be responsible if their kids had that, it's only a 2% chance or something. I mean, now it's 0.6, I guess, temporarily. But I know also my husband works in senior care, and he's been wearing a mask, and he has allergies. And he got the virus, and it's really changed our life, and it's been very painful for him. And I got the virus, and I got the vaccine, and, it's just, we've all been so affected in senior care, and he's doing everything to protect people's parents, in senior care. It's been a hardship for him personally in senior care. A lot of seniors did catch the virus. But I just was wondering, is it possible that there could be perhaps considered a waiver that the families that say that they don't want to wear the mask could be asked to sign a waiver, and then they could be accountable, and then this whole responsibility issue could be mitigated. That's my thought. So thank you for listening. Thank you guys for your patience. I know it's hard to hear so much anger and pain on behalf of people, but I do think it's out of an amazing love and concern in this community. And if anybody wants to leave the city, which I don't hope you guys don't, I'm always available to help. Right. Prices are very high. Okay. Thank you guys. Really, that's not why I came up, but somebody shared that. So thank you.
And I left a stack of cards in the back of the room. For sure. Good morning.
Good morning. Okay, so where do I start here? First of all, vaccines in schools. I'm going to start with that. Vaccines in schools. I read something the other day in regards to how they were going to deal with kids being vaccinated and non-vaccinated. So basically what the whole thing came out of was they were segregating kids. They're segregating kids. Segregating kids. Now, in America, that's where we live, that's not acceptable. We don't live in a third world country. We live in America. Our kids are our future. 100% our future. Every one of you know that. You're not sitting up in those chairs because you don't. Okay? So, I'm mind-boggled that we want to actually segregate which kids have been vaccinated and which kids haven't been vaccinated. I'm not a smart person, but I'm just trying to think what that does to the mind of some of the kids. Is it good for them? Nobody? Nobody has an answer? I find nobody has answers. Yeah. That was one of the things, too, that I brought up last week. And I noticed a lot of people here are saying the same thing. You ask questions. You can go to this lady and ask her a question. She'll just roll you down the pathway. Go over to this lady. She'll tell you over here. Talk to this lady. She'll tell you, talk to you. She'll send you over here. Everybody gets sent everywhere. But nobody has answers. We're following the science, but we're not. We're following the science when it's comfortable. When it's not comfortable, we're not following the science. When it's convenient, we follow the science. There's agendas. Agendas. And I have a really, really horrible feeling because politicians don't have a ton of great reputation. They're known to do pretty shady stuff. So, is there shady stuff going on here? Anybody? Is there shady stuff going on here? Nobody wants to say anything? I didn't think so. Okay. So, vaccines. Let's go back to something here. Ma'am, you said that variants need to be tested. Don't variants need to be lab tested?
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
Doesn't a variant
question?
need to be lab tested? Are we lab testing all these results?
So there are a proportion, like about 20%, that are being whole genome sequenced, yes. In the
So
lab.
not all of them?
Not all of them.
Okay,
About
so we don't,
20%.
so it's fake numbers? Okay, got it. Thank you. Appreciate your help. Jesus Christ. The vaccines are, what are they? You said they were 88% now? Huh. 1.8% of people, I guess the death fatality rate is 1.8%. So that means 100% of the people that are getting it, 98.8 of them are using their immunity to get better. So we want to take a vaccine that's 88% protective. Sounds like a great idea. I struggle with this. Last week when we were here, a couple weeks ago, a lady came up from the San Joaquin Public Health Department and said that the schools were going to have, the districts were going to have their own, be able to make their own choices. Now all of a sudden that changed? How'd that change? Why did it change?
Who from San Joaquin County came up?
From Stanislaus County. There was a lady here that at the end that came up here and said that the schools were going to possibly, because on Friday, the meeting was on Tuesday. On Friday, they had said everything's going to get shut down again, or that, the mask thing was going to be required. And then on Monday night, she said that, well, hold on. According to now, they're going to change it to where the schools can have their own, make their own decisions on it. Did that change again?
No.
So that is the case. Schools have their own.
Schools are going to have the ability to enforce, but
enforce?
Enforce.
Okay.
How they want to enforce.
So in other words, they can't force you to do it. They're going to ask you to do it.
I don't know what the school districts. I can't speak for the school districts. I appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
My daughter, Allie Dre, wanted to say something real quick.
Perfect. Pull that mic down so she can.
I just really want to see my friends smile so school be back to normal.
Okay, so my name's Jamie Dre. I'm from Oakdale. I hadn't really planned on getting up to talk, but both her and my little one back there kept saying, Mom, get up and say something, get up and say something. So I'm going to kind of come at this a different way. I agree with everything that's already been said, and I appreciate everything that's already been said. So the way I'm coming at this is also along the lines of the waiver. I think that's a great idea. That's something that my husband and I have talked about, like why isn't that an option out there? And I know that's kind of school district by school district. I don't really understand how much pull you guys have in guiding those school districts and some of those decision-making processes. But my thing more so is, what do we need to do as parents? What guidance can you give us as parents? There's no real guidance, like many have said. It's constantly bounced around of who to talk to, who to go to, what to do. We know that there is the lawsuit against California, which, great, hopefully that gets us somewhere. The Healthy Children's Resolution Act, great for the counties that have put that request in. Hopefully our county does the same. But how do we work together with you guys? How do we make this a team thing where, as parents, as you guys as our representatives, how do we come at this as a team where we are making this something as a choice for our children, where our only option isn't you come to school with a mask or you sit at home and you work at home and parents have to figure out how to make it work. I worked for 15 years, and when the shutdown happened, my husband and I had to come to a decision of what we were going to do. Daycare closed, everything closed, and now I'm a stay-at-home mom, which we're grateful that has been working so far. Hopefully stays that way. But many parents don't have that option. Daycares are completely overwhelmed. After-school programs are completely overwhelmed. And the option of put your child in a mask or keep them at home and the independent study options that parents are given, they're not realistic. So if there's anything that can actually be delivered today or relatively soon, because I know for us, for Oakdale, school starts next week on Wednesday, and our kids are going in a mask. There's no way around that unless you keep your child home. And I know a lot of families, that's not an option. And the independent study option they gave us is you are at home and your child is on a computer from 8 to 2 staring at a screen streamed into a classroom. And once a week, a parent has a meeting with a school representative for an hour. And that is the commitment, and that's your contract. And if you don't abide by that contract, the student is at school with a mask. So the options aren't really there for those of us that would like the mask choice. I feel like there needs to be more of an option where it's spread across, where it's not catered to those that want the mask. There needs to be more options available across the board. And I agree that I think that's where some form of a waiver process for both sides, masked or unmasked, that I think that would be a great compromise if we could find a way, maybe even as a county, to head that and be the example for the state, that might be a great thing, so that whether you are masked or unmasked, you sign that waiver to attend school, that either way the schools are protected, because I know that that is one thing for the school districts right now that really has their hands tied, is the legal side, that they don't want a lawsuit from the parents that want the masks. But at the same time, what about the lawsuits from the parents who don't want the masks? So either way, if there's a way that we could maybe work together as parents and as you guys as representatives to find a way to do something like that, or for you guys to help be a voice for us to the state, I think that would be wonderful. I, again, echo everything that all the other parents say today. I feel the exact same way, but I don't feel like it needs to be said much more, because I feel like that's been driven home pretty hard, and I'm not going to beat you guys up too much over that, but I just feel like less talk and a lot more action would be wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. So thank you again for your time.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman and Board, thank you so much for your service, and thank you for your patience. Boy, you do this all the time. I really admire you.
Thank you for your patience.
I was not prepared to speak today, but my fellows have really inspired me and motivated me. I can tell you that I imagine you must say, oh my gosh, are you guys kidding me? Really? You guys are concerned with all these other things when we're trying to keep your children alive? When there's an accountability not only to your children, but to staff, to other children, so on and so forth. All those, that are not only involved in the schools, but in the world, right? What I have, what really stirs me and I question is, yes, we are told these numbers, but then, boy, I wish I would have had more statistics, and I'm really sorry. But I feel like everything is one-sided. We're told one thing, but we're not told the other, I think there are certain things that are hypothetical, and then there are other things that are factual. It is not proven that masks are beneficial. To the contrary, I have read more things where a mask is detrimental. First and foremost, to children, they breathe in or consume 6 times more carbon monoxide than normal without the mask. Also, I don't understand about there being a necessity for a vaccine when this, for most people, there's a 98% recovery rate. Now, there are people that have unfortunately died, most of them with underlying issues. And so, I'm sorry. I also know that as parents, it's my responsibility to protect my child, and I think that's what I'm doing, and not in a negligent manner, because I have called my pediatrician to ask questions, I have done research, I have friends who research, family members, et cetera, et cetera. I've even called people from the school district office, from my son's middle school, from my daughter's high school, wanting to gather information. And not everything that I read, I believe, is true, because there's so much contradiction. So a lot of it, I want to receive feedback for people that are seeing things on the front line, including the nurse at the school district. Now, again, like I said, I think many things are very one-sided, because I don't hear complications and side effects of the vaccine, strokes, so on and so forth. I don't hear alternative treatments that are out there that have been very effective. I feel like there's a lot of scare tactics, and that's not something that I want to instill in my children. I know that for most vaccines and other times that there have been pandemics, we have not had a world shutdown. Many times, and they were very deadly, absolutely very deadly. But like I said, there's a 98% recovery rate with this. Also, there are, other than the long-term side effects, as a parent, I have the right, and many people do, because I even have friends that do not vaccinate their children. They believe that the risk is greater, than the benefit, especially if there are illnesses that are eradicated, for example, polio, diphtheria, etc. What's the likelihood of my child, getting that, of my child contracting that? So they have a right not to vaccinate. So I believe that I should have the right for my child too. My child was very scared to start practicing basketball. And she said, Mom, but everybody's getting vaccinated and they're saying that we can't play basketball if we're not vaccinated. I said, no, they cannot make you. I said, that's not the law. It is unconstitutional. You tell your coach to come and speak with me. But what's happening is that just a lot of fear is being instilled for something that I just don't think merits it, And unfortunately, like some of my fellows were sharing, that our trust goes down in government, because you wonder, is it really about the well-being, or is it about the dollars? Is it about our government that has our governor that has invested in masks and all these other things, and certain officials that we know have
I'm going to ask you to wrap it
invested
up.
in their own vaccine? Yeah. Well, I thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it, and thank you for your time again. Oh, and please remember, please, I know that it's not about the money, and we hope that you, in fact, serve your public as you have sworn to do. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I was not anticipating giving any form of say in all of this, but just like all of the other parents, you just feel obligated to be the advocate and the voice for your kids. But I do want to start off giving my sincerest condolences to the mother in the room that lost her child to suicide, which never should have happened because of the nonsense, and to all of the other parents in the state and throughout that have lost kids due to all of this. I do not believe in sending kids back to schools en masse. It was heartbreaking last year having to send my first grader back to school and explain to him that you cannot take your mask off. I should not have to instill a fear in my kid going to school, explaining to him what will happen if he takes his mask off, that I'm going to have to come and pick him up, he'll be sent to the principal's office. That is just not right on any level, to have to explain to your kid that this is going to be our new normal, because it's not normal. You do not go to school having to wear a mask and having to put fear in them to tell them that if you take it off, you're going to be sent home. He does not like the mask. There's no reason to wear the mask, as many people and stats show that there's really no science behind it. There was a situation with my first grader who got incredibly frustrated which was heartbreaking to see him get so overwhelmed and frustrated, because beginning of last year, Turlock Unified School District made it clear that they were not able to go back with backpacks or lunch pails or anything like that. And as you know, when the weather changes, they have more in their hands to carry. He's 6 years old, crying on the side of the sidewalk at the school because he can't carry a sack lunch, his homework folder, an umbrella, and a jacket, and all of this. So I should not have to justify and explain to him sending him to school the following day with a backpack, with a lunch pail. Mom, they're going to send me to the school, up to the school office. I'm going to have to see the principal. I'm going to get in trouble. I should not have to justify or explain to him and reassure him that this is okay. That is okay. That's the normal. This is what needs to go back to. So we are just trying to follow chain of command as parents and get you guys to continue on and be the voice for our kids and let them know that this is not okay and that it needs to come to an end. And that's just where I want to leave everything. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I wasn't going to speak today, but after hearing everyone else speak and just saying everything that I have felt throughout this whole pandemic, that, yes, it's a pandemic, that this all needs to stop. All this is about control and how you can control the people and how you can cause fear in them. And I personally, from day one of this pandemic, have never worn a mask, have never done nothing but go outside, shop, do whatever I normally do. Because I live by faith and not fear. And I will always live my life with faith over fear. And I know, thank you, and I know what this is all about. And I know even the board standing up here, you're just kind of sitting back, because I've been watching you back there, like you, tilting, this one just kind of, you know, I've seen it all. I see every single one of your faces, except for you. Buck, you seem to be listening to what I'm saying. The rest of you, not so much. See, that little smirk, you know, you're either applying chapstick or you're doing whatever. Because this is all to you means nothing. And I understand that yes, exactly, that's smart.
Chapstick,
Yes.
I guess I
Yeah,
shouldn't be putting on chapstick during a meeting. I apologize.
You should. But anyway, I know what this is all about. You guys are going to rule however you want to rule. Because none of you want to stand up and do what's right. Like all of us here. We're American citizens. We should each have, if I go to each one of your door and say, I got a syringe here, but I want to inject it in your arm, can I? I have to inject it. You're all going to slam your door in my face because you have a right not to do that. We have a right not, and see how you've left that vaccinate sign up there the whole time? That's all propaganda right there. Why hasn't that been removed after she spoke? But no, you leave it up there for a reason. You guys have to catch on to what's going on. It's all propaganda. This is all fear-mongering. We see it. I know, and I'm not the only one, I know. But we see it, because she could have taken that off there. She does not. Leave it up there 24 hours a day, telling the people what they should do. We have rights. You know, our forefathers fought for each and every one of us to have our personal rights. And these are our kids. And if we don't want to have our kids muzzled up with the mask, that's our choice. As soon as she was born, she was my responsibility. And I do whatever it takes to keep her safe and to do what's best for her. And if you're a parent that wants to wear the mask 24 hours a day in your car, in the shower, so be it. But leave the rest of us who don't alone. You're afraid? I get it. I'm afraid of a lot of things. Okay? But if you're afraid, then stay home. That's exactly what it is. It's a choice. And you're not standing up for our fundamental rights. And you can do something. Absolutely. Each one of you can do something. But you're most likely not going to. But you're just hearing us just because, oh, we're going to put the face on like we're going to hear you. But you won't. My hands are tied. Your hands are not tied. Like another person that said, I think he left already. When are people going to stand up for what's right? When are all of you, even if all of you don't agree, when is one of you going to stand up? At least one of you say, I agree with what you're saying. You're absolutely right. But I doubt any of you will. Just sit there in your nice little comfortable chairs, sipping your water, applying your chapstick, you know, and the rest of us, you know what's coming down the line? It's a tattoo on the arm that we're going to have to show that we've been vaccinated with a number. Does that sound familiar? When is all this going to stop? I'm glad these people are here because I've been talking like this the whole time of this pandemic. Okay? So now I have a forum. But I will never stop speaking the truth, and I will never stop being proud that I am an American and that I have rights. And I'm going to stand up for my rights and for my daughter because I want her her grandkids to have an America like I did when I was growing up, and will hopefully continue to do. But if you guys continue to go down this route, you know, you will see, okay, go down this route, our country will be gone. It's already going to communism. And the propaganda right there, looking right in the face, 24 hours a day, that's what you get. Enough is enough. Okay, my daughter wants to say something. Go ahead, Fallon, say something.
I thought on July 15th this was all going to stop. But no, it's going to go on and on and on. It'll never stop. Well,
until people stand up?
Nobody's going to stand up.
We're standing up.
Even for kids.
I thought I was going to have to say good afternoon. I think I can still say good morning. Good morning, Board of Supervisors. And thank you to all the parents that are here today advocating for the rights of their children to breathe freely. I am a mom of a child with special needs. She's a young adult now, but she is still in the Modesto City Schools District umbrella. She attends a transitions program, and she has a really tough time understanding why she can't hug her friends, why, you know, she's a hugger for sure, and why, you know, she's not allowed to, you know, hug her teachers. Because mommy doesn't want her wearing, I'm sorry, let me go back. And why she has to wear a face shield, because mommy doesn't want her wearing a mask at school on the bus from 6:20 in the morning until 5:15 when she gets delivered to us in the evening. I made some accommodations over the summer so that didn't have to happen, but that's likely what's going to have to happen again when she goes back to school. And that's an almost 11-hour ride with her wearing that mask. My 17-year-old who's healthy, he's a student at Enox, he's strong, he's vibrant, he's my football player. He was just recently diagnosed with some liver issues that we suspect were likely caused by wearing a mask for prolonged periods of time. The labs taken found high levels of alkaline in his kidneys, and the doctor told us that that was referred to as hypercapnia. And suspects that it is from long periods of CO2 retention from abnormally elevated carbon dioxide levels in his blood. So we're working on that. It's not detrimental, but definitely scary for us. My baby's a courtesy clerk at one of our local grocery stores, so sometimes he has to wear the mask for 8 hours minus the one for his lunch. And then now when he's going back to school, he's being asked to wear the mask during weightlifting, and which is a little crazy for me, but that's what they're being asked to do. Just to kind of comment on the Delta variant that we were shown the numbers on, I mean, we know that although more transmittability, the death rate, if contracted, is only about 0.08% among the unvaxxed. I would imagine the numbers are way lower for the people that are vaccinated. Again, in my opinion, another way to fearmonger us into getting the vaccine. The PCR test that you mentioned, in determining the increase in cases in Stanislaus County, California, were never intended to be used to test for COVID-19. The PCR tests are not even able to differentiate between COVID-19 and the common flu. We know that already. The CDC's already put that out as well. They're looking for alternative ways to also test for COVID. I think that's something that just recently came out. There have been countless of peer-reviewed studies that demonstrate masks don't work. Highly credible medical institutions have already affirmed masks without a reasonable doubt have absolutely zero chance of preventing the spread of COVID-19. These studies have been well noted on the National Center for Biotechnological Information, which happens to be a government website, a branch of the National Institute for Health. One would think that such a study would be reported by mainstream media and embraced by science-loving folks, but instead this information, and of course various other scientific informations that come from highly accredited medical journals, have been fact-checked and removed so that the general public doesn't see that. If you're demanding that our kids wear masks, then please explain to me how you plan to mitigate the harm these masks are causing our kids. We already know through the various peer-reviewed studies and publications that hypercapnia, which is already what happened to my son, so I'm a bit of a living example of that through my son, is one of the adverse effects. Are you willing to accept the liability once more and more folks wake up to the detriments of mask wearing, and that despite your knowledge of this by all of the information that you've been provided to you today, the decision to continue masking our children was still made. My own experience, I have to share with you, I was diagnosed with leukemia in the midst of the pandemic, or plandemic, whatever way you want to look at it, in the fall of 2020. Thankfully, I'm in remission and fully recovered. In that time, I learned something that was kind of interesting. I was going to all these doctor appointments and to, Stanford or whatever, and every time that I would go in, I was asked to remove my N95 because I was being careful because, of course, my immune system was so fragile. And I was being asked to remove my N95 at Stanford, which was one of the people that also published one of the findings on the masks and was taken down. 67 scientists peer-reviewed, and they were taken down by some 22-year-old fact checker probably in the basement of his mother's house, but that's what happened. And I would, just really quickly, I was removing my mask, and then I would be asked to put on the blue flimsy mask that we all know doesn't prevent the spread of pathogen or whatever, right, the flus or whatever. And I was contaminating my blue mask from removing my white mask. It just didn't make any sense to me. And we're asking our children to wear these masks that we don't know, cloth masks that maybe haven't been washed in several days, whatever, weeks probably, depending on the parent, to wear these masks into the schools, and they're constantly touching their faces and then spreading all of their germs all over the countertops, all over door handles, all over their computers. It just doesn't make sense to me. Nothing makes sense anymore. Common sense is a lost art. Please use your common sense in prayer, please. When advocating for the children in Stanislaus County, use your conscience. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Corinne Whitlow, and I was motivated to speak after hearing Dr. V said she had a choice to wear a mask here today. We all have choices, so we hope, and you guys have choices sitting up here representing us. I'm a nurse. I worked through the pandemic. I've seen all sides of it. I've lost a loved one to COVID. My child's mental health is suffering because of COVID. Staying home is not an option for him because our dinner table became a place where we no longer wanted to be together. We had to move his school area from place to place just to try to accommodate our family's well-being. Staying home isn't an option because I have to work to help our community. My child wants to go back to school. He doesn't want to wear a mask. I have choices that I make every day. You guys have choices that you make every day. Dr. V made a choice coming in here, and I'm asking you guys to choose to fight for us and to fight for our children. It's very clear that you guys have made it clear that the California Department of Public Health has made this call here. Now we're asking you to make the call. Turn around and fight back for our children. Please. We will support you. Support us. We're begging you. We're doing everything we can here to help our children. I'm doing everything I can to help my community. Every patient who comes through that door, I don't treat them any different as they were my grandma, your grandma. Please don't treat our children any different. I understand these aren't your guys' rules. And it sounds like your hands are tied. I don't know the technicalities behind that. But I'm asking you, you have a choice. Please stand with us and fight with for our children. It's not comfortable. Believe me, I have so many uncomfortable conversations with my patients' family members. I don't want to have these conversations. I know you guys don't want to have these conversations. You won't do it alone. We will fight with you guys. I'm begging you guys. Please fight with us. I know it's not that easy, I know it, but we are in it for the long haul. We're in it for our children, for our community, for each other, for you guys. If you guys come into the hospital, I'm going to treat you the same whether you support me or not, whether you support my child wearing a mask or not. We're going to take care of you the same, I promise you that. If you agree with me or you don't agree with me, please support us. Please.
Last but not least, hi, I'm Stephanie Pinnell. I'm a kindergarten teacher in Sylvan District. Bear with my voice. The little people are my people. Speaking in front of adults is not my favorite. There's my people right there. So I refuse to enforce this psychological abuse on my students. If parents want their children to wear masks, their children wear masks. Those students come to school with their masks. They know because they've been told by their parents to leave their masks on, and they do. The students whose parents know what's really going on with this, whose children come to school and they have their masks because they're told to by the school, and they remove them so they can breathe because their small little developing lungs need to breathe, and that's how we expel the germs in our body and breathe fresh air. I allow them to do so. I have seen what it's done to children when administrators come in, bullying them and treating them harshly to put their mask back on. To come out to the playground and tell children they need to put their mask back on unless they go over to a designated breathing space. How crazy is that? To the data that was presented today, I would like to read something from the CDC's current website that says, on July 21st, the CDC will withdraw the request to the U.S. Food and Drug Administration for emergency use authorization of the PCR testing. How accurate is this data that has just been proposed? That was July 21st. July 27th, the Western Journal reports, George Soros and Bill Gates have teamed up for a $41 million purchase of COVID testing company. Is that where we're going to get our new data? I would like to propose that you guys really consider the data that you are being presented by the county, by our government, and how that affects our decisions in relation to the people in this district that you represent, and especially the children. Thank you.
Hi, sorry, I was trying to decide if I wanted to come up here or not. Thank you all for listening to us today. I know some of you. This has been a really hard year. I don't want to cry. I've been crying all day. These are like heartbreaking stories. My daughter loves school. I'm a teacher. I'm a credentialed teacher. I haven't taught since I had my daughter, but I wanted to go back, but I don't right now. She's an amazing little girl. I very quickly on, because we only have one little one at home, still found ways to be with people because I could see the heartbreak in her. I could see her just, it was just changing her. And we had some scary things going on too during that whole time. She had a scary thing on her skin. It took us 6 months to get into UC. It was crazy, and it was so scary. And I'm glad she got to go back to school. Our little country school did go back before a lot of other people. They had to wear masks. They had plexi up. They had to wear masks outside running. I was always pretty anti-mask, only because unless I absolutely had to in a medical building or somewhere where there were sick people, I don't think it's a good idea, and I definitely don't think children should be wearing them. My daughter did not wear one because it was only recommended for second grade and lower. When that changed in, I believe, January, I'm not sure, that was the choice we had. If you want to go to school, you have to wear a mask, okay? And I decided, even though I was against it, to let her try. After a week, she developed, I believe it's called impetigo, I'm not sure. She developed these strange white bumps in her nose, and her lips were bleeding because she's a rule follower. Unless I tell her, you don't have to do it. She's a rule follower. So when they told her she couldn't take off her mask in class at all, outside at all, she didn't. The water fountains were closed. She would bring water. She was scared to drink her water bottle. She thought she would get in trouble. She is a good student. When that all happened, I took her into the doctor. She got a medical note. I'll tell you, my daughter was the only child at her school for 3 months not wearing a mask. The only child. And I wanted to feel bad because I felt like it was like, is this special treatment? Like, I don't know. But no one else took their kids. She had friends with lesions on their faces. She had kids that were like, they just didn't look well. They were wearing a mask all day. At the end, for like a month, I think it was, they lifted the thing outside. Turlock District kept it. They suck. They made their kids still wear masks outside all day. So this is it. I know that I can pull my kid. I can homeschool. I'm a teacher. I'm looking into private school. My little country school is probably going to try hard to not, but they're going to follow the rules. It's about money. They've already said that. They don't want to get lawsuits. They want to keep their funding. I'm asking you, I know a lot of you on this board. I'm asking you to stand up. There are counties in California, there are cities not mandating this. There is only 10 states out of 58, like someone had already said, that's requiring it. But even within those states, there's a plenty of counties and cities that are saying, we're not going to do this. It needs to be a choice. That's it. Thank you.
It'll be really short because I don't want to cry.
You have a full 5 minutes.
Oh, boy. Okay, so bring in the buckets. No. So I used to drive a school bus for 20 years. And I have also believed in natural healing. I'm wondering why the health and the science can't get back to the basics of our children's health, their immunity system. And the science. To me, it's divine science. We need to just get back to the basics. Keep the humans out of it. Keep the money out of it. And focus on our kids. If we don't have our children, we're not here anymore in the future. It's all in our children. And I'm sure you do understand that part. Thank you.
Thank you much. Anyone else? Okay. Seeing none, I'm going to bring it back to the board. I'm sure there are some board comments. I can see Supervisor Withrow has 6 pages lined up. So. You wanna
Mr.
start?
Chairman, before we get started into that, I don't know about anybody in the audience, but I need to use the restroom.
Okay. All right. Does anyone mind if we take a 2-minute break? Just a 2-minute break? All right. We'll take a 2-minute break so we can use the body. Thank you very much for asking. Go fast. The board members are here. I'm okay. That's okay. All right. Going to be back in session here. Thank you for extending us a couple of minutes. Yourself. All right. So now I'm bringing it back for board comments. I'm going to turn it over to Supervisor Withrow first.
Okay. Thank you. So first, I just want to thank everybody for being here, and Julie and Mary Ann, thank you guys. You're in a tough spot having to sit there, and I know you probably have your own personal opinions, and then we've got the line, the government line that we're supposed to carry, and I just very much appreciate, I know you guys have been through a lot also, what you've been doing, so I appreciate that. And I really want to thank everybody for being here today again, as we had a few weeks ago when everybody was here. So just to start this off with a little bit, first I just want to, this is more of a commentary than anything, and it seems like I don't understand how we've gotten to this point, in our country with different opinions, but it seems to be just one opinion, and if you're not in that group, then you're demonized, you're belittled. It's very frustrating as I see, even in our own local newspaper, as I see, if you're not going along with the program, you are, like I said, you're demonized, you're belittled, and I don't know how we got to that point, because especially with the pandemic and everything we've been dealing with, there are multiple opinions as far as how this should work or how it does work. And there's science on both sides. So to say that one side is absolutely correct and the other side is wrong, and if you're saying that, you're crazy, is just not the way this country works, and not the way this country is supposed to work. And as my fellow supervisors up here, I'm sure we'll see where this goes today. But we have different opinions, but I respect their opinions, and they all come from different backgrounds than I. And they are going to arrive at their opinions a certain way. But I don't fault them for not agreeing with me, or if they agree with me, that's great. But I don't, and that's the way this country works and is supposed to work. And that's how we get to positions and spots where we get things done. And especially here in this county, that's how we've always been, at least in the sitting up here at this desk. We have always found that middle ground to solve problems, to get things done. And when I see the stuff that's going on, again, I don't want to continue to reference the newspaper, but when I see them actually almost instigating and trying to influence this board, in their decisions, we don't need that. We are up here, we listen to our community, we don't need an agenda, we don't have an agenda, we all have our own opinions, and I'm very comfortable with disagreeing with each other, but we sure don't need to be told how we're supposed to do things up here. And I know that we have a group of 5 very talented, heartfelt, good people that are up here trying to make decisions and do what's best for our community. So that being said, I just wanted to get that out of the way, get that off my chest a little bit, because as I read the paper, I have a hard time sometimes with just how that's deteriorated. As we've said here, we can't go tell the school what to do. The schools are all answering to the state, but what's happened recently, and this is as recent as last night at a Modesto City School Board meeting, was that I was happy to see that there was a letter that was written, and we've all got copies of this letter. And if I look at the last part of the letter, signed by the school board, we respectfully request that you lift, and this letter is addressed to Dr. Ghali, California Department of Public Health Officer, California Department, anyway, it's who they sent it to the state. And the last paragraph says, we respectfully request that you lift the statewide K-12 mask mandate and allow us to work with our local public health officials to craft facial covering policies suitable for the communities and students we serve. And that's all we want at this point, is to be able to make it our decision, a local decision based on what's going on in our community. And so this was great. This was a great letter. This is the first time I've seen it. And so I would love for this board, if possible, to somehow, and I'm not sure, we're going to kind of make this up in front of everybody here as we do, is what I think we're going to try to do today. And I don't know where this is going to go. But I would love to see us be able to support, endorse in some sort of resolution that we support what the Modesto City Schools has just come out with as far as their request to have it brought back to a local control. In my mind, I think that makes total sense, something I've been advocating for a year. And I would love to see us be able to support that. Again, I don't know where this is going to go, and I realize that we're all going to have the same opinion. I just came home from Tahoe, Lake Tahoe. I actually came home this morning, 4 in the morning, and got in the car and drove here. And because I left my family still up there, but our son's home. And he's home from the Middle East, serves our country like tens and thousands of other men and women do every day for the sake, as I drove, and not a fun drive early in the morning. And but I was thinking of all this stuff, and I thought how great it is to have him home and his family be with us for this time. And to be able to enjoy his company, knowing that when he's not with us, his life is in danger every day, as, like I said, tens and thousands of other men and women in this country. But what he does allows us to be here, allows us to be able to do the things that all of you are doing here today. And regardless of what happens here today, I don't want any of you to walk out of this room with your head down, because you are moving the needle. Just the fact that this letter came out of the Modesto City Schools last night, it's not because everybody was silent, it's because people stood up and had their opinions heard, and were making everyone, there's no apathy here, is what I guess I'm trying to say. It is everybody getting involved in the process, and that's how the process should work. So I would like to see if this board could somehow move forward with a statement of support, a resolution of some sort, that would say that we agree with what Modesto City Schools has done. We would encourage other school districts in this county to do the same thing. And like I said, all of us together asking for local control. So again, I appreciate all of you being here. I very much appreciate all of you, regardless of where this goes today. And let's see what we're going to do here. Thank you.
I just want to thank all of our community members coming here today and exercising your constitutional freedoms. We definitely appreciate hearing from our community, and we appreciate the time it takes and everything you do for your families and your careers and being a good citizen. Civic engagement is what makes our country great, and truly appreciate your time today and your passion. I do appreciate my colleagues' comments. I can support a resolution in the sense where we support local control as versus dictating to the school districts on what policies to do. But I do think that the Modesto City Schools letter is a good step forward, and I would have no problems essentially supporting that and our school districts taking the authority in that sense. But as long as the language is crafted and that general matters, and making sure that we're not dictating to another local municipality how to conduct policy, because we wouldn't appreciate another authority coming in and telling us how to do our job here today as county supervisors. I could support a resolution or something in that sense if it's brought back to the board.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you to the community that came out today. I know a lot of you have jobs, other things, people talking about being on vacation with their children. So giving up that time to advocate for something that you truly believe in. And you can see it by the emotions that were shown today. And as much as some people might think that we put on a straight face and we don't care, a lot of the comments that were made, they really touched us. And for us, sometimes it's hard to show that emotion, just trying to be, keeping a straight face, but that emotion really shows. And there were some times when the kids spoke, I almost had to stop myself from clapping. But, as a father of 4 children myself, I know the challenges and the things that all of you are facing. And so what when something like this comes up, just like 3 or 4 months ago, there was a parent that reached out to me whose daughter was really injured because she wore a mask while having to play tennis. And I know somebody mentioned the test of common sense, and sometimes that's a lost art. And when we really dug in on the issue and people were asked to wear masks while they were doing cross country or tennis or playing golf, which if you look at the test of common sense, seems like that would be the safest sports to be playing when you're trying to socially distance and stay away from people. But then wearing a mask when you're at 100-degree heat running 3 miles just doesn't pass the test of common sense for me. But where we've gotten now, local control for the school districts, because it really is their jurisdiction. And people ask, well, you're saying your hands are tied. Oh, our hands are tied just out of respect to those school districts because they're the board members that have been elected, the superintendents that are doing the job. But we do have a partnership or an opportunity to tell them how we feel. And this letter, once we heard about this last night, I thought was a really good step in the right direction. Modesto City Schools being one of the largest school districts in this area, hopefully other school districts, whether larger or smaller, will follow suit as well. And so I as well, just as my colleague Supervisor Withrow, who's been passionate about this for many, many months, and the respect he's had with us. We always don't agree on everything, but the respect, mutual respect we share for each other, and when they bring up issues, we all listen. And so what my previous 2 colleagues have said, that's what I would be supportive of, is a letter of support showing that we agree with the steps that the Modesto City Schools is taking, and then asking and advocating to other school districts in this region, and asking the state to give us local control, because nobody knows our community better than we know our community, and we've seen what our community wants. And so I'd be really supportive of putting together a letter from the board to encourage more school districts to show this type of leadership for their children.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to thank all the parents and speakers that came out today. You had a lot of great information. Let me digress a little bit. Dr. V, Marianne, thank you for your report. There's a lot of great information in there to comprehend. And again, thank you to all the parents and speakers. I believe that it is parents' choice to make decisions on behalf of their kids in schools. I have read the letter, and that is a good idea, and I agree with my colleagues on making this a local issue so that parents do have that choice to make decisions for their kids when they go to school. The psychological damage we're causing our kids right now, we haven't even seen the tip of the iceberg on it yet. I was talking with my wife the other night about it, and it is really scary what could be coming down the road. The social and emotional skills of our kids are being lost. How long were you locked down? Over a year. Now we're asking kids to wear masks in schools. The common sense factor has left. So it is time for a political body to stand up and advocate for parents on behalf of their children. To make wearing a mask a choice and not a mandate. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So the difficulty in what we've been through here today, and I know it feels like that everyone's passing the buck. That's just not the case. There are 26 school districts in Stanislaus County. There are 26 superintendents. There are 120 board members plus. There's more than 120 board members who are duly elected just like us, who go out and make decisions, what they see is the best, in the best interest of their district. We have a public health department, one of our 26 departments we have in Stanislaus County, that, and I will stick up for Dr. V every single day of the week. The information we received today is information we've been receiving for the last year and a half. And the data shows that case rates are going up, that hospitalizations are going up. So we can say if we're, hey, hold on. I had an opportunity to listen to you. Now please give me an opportunity. And so as you stand here and talk about, Dr. V's evidence, or what was presented to us today, it's not her evidence, it's California Department of Public Health's evidence. It tracks over whether the tests were right or wrong. It still tracks over hospitalizations and deaths as you look over the long period of time. And that's because everyone gets so wound up. So we receive data in the same way for the last year and a half, and nothing has changed. And we've tried to make decisions, but our public health orders have never been more stringent than the states. And that, you can't say that in San Francisco and Marin and Contra Costa and Alameda and these other counties. They always have public health orders that are more stringent than the state. So I think that speaks volumes of Dr. V and her cautious attitude when we're moving forward. And we can't be any less restrictive. She can't come up with a public health order that says you don't have to follow any rules. There's no possible way to do that. What we're doing today is we're being asked to stand up on behalf of the school districts. And I think that's what Supervisor Withrow, who's been the most consistent board member from day one regarding schools and keeping kids in schools. And we have to, if you use evidence, like we're using evidence today, the evidence also shows that there's a low transmission rate with younger kids. And so, but you can't have it both ways. So that's the evidence. Is for older people, it's much more dangerous. Vaccinations are much more important in those 65 and over, where the majority of the deaths occur. And then in the children, it's not nearly as, it's probably effective, but it's not necessarily necessary. So because we go through all these emotions, and we're up here to make a decision not based on emotions, just to make it based on fact. And the fact of the matter is that kids don't transmit. Someone had used the word, I don't like the word, but snot, there's little snot rags, but they don't transmit the virus as readily as adults do. And they don't have the effect, it doesn't have the same effect, detrimental effect, as it does on adults. And the goal of Supervisor Withrow for 13 months now is the social and emotional well-being of kids staying home is too great to overcome leaving kids in school. Dr. V, last year when, and I'm bad with dates, but I'm going to say March of last year, March of 2020, she recommended that we not close schools. Very unpopular decision when school districts, because of a liability issue. I completely understand why. But she was advocating the timing wasn't right. Until the evidence points to the need to close schools, it wasn't the right time. And people forget all of these things, but we don't. We've been sitting here living this, I guess not all of us have been living it, but a couple of us for sure for the whole length of the pandemic. So there is no control. Someone used a word that you can talk about federal and state government all you want, but locally we're not trying to control because we haven't set any standards that are more restrictive. And I think, again, the evidence is encouraging with the younger kids to stay in school, and masks probably are less necessary. The key is when case rates start to spike, as we have this conversation, and it may or may not, we're just looking at the way the graph is moving now, but if there comes a time when it's important to keep kids in school rather than close schools, is it better to have them masked? And that's a conversation down the line, because that's not today. That's not what we're discussing today. And so I'm perfectly okay. I love that the school districts, because I'm not comfortable telling the school districts what to do, because for the same reason that Supervisor Condit said we don't want school districts showing up and telling us how to run the jails, as an example, or how to run the libraries. So I think that's a fair statement. What Modesto City's schools did was a strong statement to the CDPH, the California Department of Public Health, to lower or to remove the mask mandate. I'm okay being supportive of that. And so I don't think there's any issue there. But remembering, and I'm just, why do I sound like when I'm agreeing with all of you that I sound like I'm the party pooper here? But if we come back to a situation where our hospitals are being overrun, much like they were last fall, then I'm going to be concerned. But this is fine, and again, the evidence is on your side right now about schools and the low transmission rates. Until that changes, I'm perfectly okay supporting Modesto City Schools. So we're going to ask Tom Bowes to fashion, because we very rarely come up with something where we're just on the fly.
If I could just add a word real quick. I think our preference would be, and we carefully crafted this agenda item today so that you could have this dialogue and provide us clear direction today, so that we don't have to come back 2 weeks from now to actually take an action.
One last thing I forgot. We're going to continue as a county, and I know this board, I think the board feels the same way, to encourage people to get vaccinated. I know this isn't popular, but it's a choice, and it's not a mandate. But the folks that are of age, we had talked about, the evidence clearly shows that you're safer with a vaccine, especially in the vulnerable groups, and we're going to continue to encourage that. So,
okay, thank you very much, Chairman. So we did craft this so that we could take some form of action, receive direction from the board today that we can act on. And I think, as you've indicated through this letter, if this board supports that letter, then we would offer up a motion, and I'm going to look at Council Bowes to just confirm that this motion works. That would be to direct the chairman to send a letter to CDPH on behalf of this Board of Supervisors, expressing support for the policy issues brought forward by the Modesto City Schools Board of Education letter that dated July 27th, 2021. I'm sorry, the date of their letter says July 26, 2021, although I think it was signed today. They took action on it last night.
okay, everyone is clear enough on that? Okay.
Yeah.
So we're going to take that as a motion from
I will make that motion.
Supervisor Withrow, and a second?
Second.
Second from Supervisor Condit, Buck Condit. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Good.
And I think you heard from all the board members the appreciation. It's not easy to take time out of your schedule to come in here. And we do have one night meeting a month. Generally, it's the third Tuesday, but it's typically not any more convenient for certain people. And so we're one of the few counties that has a night meeting, and we try and to make public hearings on those days. But thank you all for spending time in here with us. Governance really does work. Democracy is messy sometimes, and we appreciate your passion and your respectfulness today, really. Thank you. Okay, now we're going to move on to correspondence.
This board has received a worker adjustment and retraining notification letter from Varney Brothers Corporation regarding the closure and termination of employees at the distribution divisions in Stockton and Modesto, including the 215 Hosmer Avenue, Modesto location.
Refer to the Department of Workforce Development.
This board has received a letter from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development regarding the Community Development Block Grant Program noncompliance with timely expenditure requirements.
Refer to the Department of Planning and Community Development.
This board has received the claims as noted on the agenda.
Acknowledge receipt of claims and refer to the Chief Executive Office. Are there any Board of Supervisor reports?
Just real quick, attended the opening ceremonies of the 13 and under pony baseball World Series at Belpassy. Got to be part of the ceremonies there. That was really nice, and it was really excited for Belpassy for having that. Belpassy didn't win it. I didn't hear who did, but I had seen that they had been eliminated. But good job in doing as best as they could. Toured the OID headquarters with my colleague Supervisor Withrow and their field operations. Thanks to Steve, Tom, and Ed for setting that up for us, and learned a lot that day about water.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And great for tourism, having these big tournaments. Pony World Series is a big deal.
Absolutely, it is.
Did you get to throw out the first pitch?
No, I didn't. Alibo, I can't remember his first name. He was a Major League Baseball player throughout first pitch.
That's probably better.
Yeah.
Retired.
Probably more impressive. Any other reports? Okay, on to legislative fiscal management report.
I'm going to pass today. I think we've talked enough about the state.
Yeah, perfect. And then one announcement today, or not today, but the Turlock Public Library dedication ceremony is going to be on Monday, August 9th at 9:30 a.m. That is 550 North Minaret Avenue in Turlock. It has been closed for more than a year, and this will be the grand reopening of a newer and expanded library system. We do have closed session today.
Yes, we have closed session this afternoon. We have, first item is conference with labor negotiator pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6. Agency negotiators and the labor organizations are as noted in the agenda. Our second item is a conference with legal counsel, existing litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9, Subdivision D1. We have one case there, Aaron Kessel and Anita Whitaker versus Miguel Mascora and Sarah Mascora at Stanislaus County Superior Court case number CV 20004420, and appropriate for public comment.
Anyone for public comment? Just want to say one person stuck it out the whole time from beginning to end. Thank you. We're going to adjourn to closed session.